still terrorized. Push me behind to get me from my better side. I wanna push you back, but that's all you want. Wanna rob me up, I'm holding back. Tryna get me framed for me in cuffs. Said I attacked you, that's just the false truth. No need to argue, and yeah, I've had enough. You follow me anywhere I try to be alone. I find you there. There's more to me. Everywhere I try to go alone, I find you there. You follow me anywhere I try to be alone, I find you there. There's more to me. Anywhere I try to be alone, I find you there. I find you there.
Question me on that right now. I took a picture of the mic. I took a picture of the mic and the setup. And so earlier today, I went to Lowe's and there was like the fans. I said, gotta appreciate all my fans. So right now I put for all my fans.
For all OG like people and Matt Morin, gun fanatics.
Gun fanatic.
I'm so scared to leave my house.
I haven't shot as much as I wish I could.
Yeah.
My privacy, does that exist? Probably haven't heard of it. Need to live a different life, 'cause lights and cameras are in it. Trying to find a silver lining. All I do is avoid the violence. But then again, I'm losing it. There's no one screaming and styling. Get out of my face, turn off the flash. I hate the fame, no more of that. Live it up, grab, I need a break. Don't feel the crowd. You follow me anywhere I try to be alone. I find you there. There's more to me. Everywhere I try to go alone, I find you there. Yeah, yeah. You follow me anywhere I try to be alone, I find you there. There's more to me. Anywhere I try to be alone, I find you there. I find you there.
All this like non-copyright music and stuff to
Yeah.
make sure like we don't get cut off, or I don't get cut off at any point.
Yeah, I saw that.
All right, let's get rid of this. Let's jump into today's episode. Song's finally over. Good, cool timing. Cool. So welcome to another episode of Moving with Life. Andy here. I'll say my buddy, but my bro, my cousin Matt Morin's back for another one. You know, so in preparation for today, because it's been a while since I've done interviews. Period. Right.
Oh,
so. And there's a couple times where I've had Brian back on, and I've had my buddy Freddie back on and we did it over Zoom. Even one with my buddy Brendan Rogers, who does photography. We've done that, and it was a good time. But I realized yesterday in talking to my buddy Matt Rodriguez is that in person, like man, like it's like I remember I enjoyed this equally as much, but it's been a minute. Like it's definitely been a minute to find like the flow and stuff like that. So we're here. Matt's here. The last time we talked on the podcast was actually, so I'd seen it was me and you did 2.
Yes.
I think we did a total of like 4 hours that time,
Yeah.
because we went through like just a whole timeline of like your background, where you came from, like how you were brought up and everything, and then how you've been a part of the family since you and your brother,
Both,
our families have been like intermingled, which I didn't know until we started doing the podcast. And then when we had Frank on whatever time, that was my point of this whole ramble is that was 2018. So it's been 4 years since we've talked like this.
Like this.
Yeah. So I'm I'm glad I get to do this. And I mentioned yesterday, is like, I know I'm gonna hate it because like in a few weeks I'm gonna have to pause this again
And
go and still go and then go back to like individual episodes. But then I know there will be a point where I'm gonna have to pause again, for work reasons and whatnot, right? So it's like, I know it's gonna be somewhat of a drag when we get there. However, I'm glad, but at least one of the things that we were ending on the last time was enjoying the time that we have. Like,
Okay.
because when we were young, it's like, oh, time goes by so fast. I don't know if you remember that little piece of that
yes,
conversation.
yeah, I remember talking.
Because we talked about multiple times, and then like that,
That.
I was listening to that as we're getting ready for this episode, and it's like, yeah. So that's what I'm trying to do. I'm trying to
Okay.
because even being able to not work and not have any health like life saving responsibility right now, it's like. It's really it is odd. It is odd to like kind of jump in.
Well, you go from like a fast pace, go, and then you get that time to just relax, and it's like, oh,
it's been an adjustment, and it's like, okay, and it's been good. It has been bad, but there are definitely moments where it just feels weird. It's like, oh,
yeah,
man, it's just like, damn.
not what you're used to.
But anyway, so 2018 was the last time we talked. So since 2018, obviously a ton has actually happened. You know,
Yes.
from I think. Because you hadn't got your house yet, the house that y'all are at now. So
No.
we're going to get into that. We're going to get into being in the school district, not necessarily the school district, but being a teacher and being in a school district and having to deal with that. I want to talk about that as well.
Okay.
I do want to talk about guns and fishing and like all the cool stuff that we talked about before. But more, we can catch up now. We can catch up and people can get filled in these past. I mean, it doesn't feel like 4 years ago.
It really doesn't. I was thinking that before I came over here. I was getting ready, and I was like, man, when was the last time we did that last podcast?
Yeah.
And I hadn't realized that it was in 2018.
Yeah. Let me see if I can pull up the exact. It was episode 74 was June 14th, 2018.
June 14th. Wow.
So we're reaching the 40, but but still been a solid 3 years
Yeah.
of like not having this, because obviously we've talked and I've been able to come home for
Yep.
holidays and stuff like that. So it's been, I mean, we've talked, but I've never had enough time to actually make this set up for us to have a conversation. So
yeah.
here we are. So let's think about June 2018. That was summertime. And so going into 2018, 2019, any big highlights that you can think of? I know it's kind of putting you on the spot a little bit, but we can move forward as I'm just trying to, again, kind of fill in the chronological timeline.
So highlights going into 2019.
Yeah, so school year 2018. Anything you can think of 2019? Because obviously 2020 is gonna be the main a big chunk of this conversation because of I'm curious to like your experience and.
Well, I mean, even then pushing into 2019, August, September was kind of just go with the flow. You go back to school. The school year started, being in education and everything. But November, December hits.
Of 2018 or 2019?
2019.
Okay. So 2019. Okay, good.
2019. It's because all that time period was just kind of just.
Which is fair, and I figure it might be because you're finally in a rhythm. You finally had some structure.
Yes.
For school and work, so you kind of knew what to expect, and you had an idea of what you're getting into. So anyways,
yeah.
So now we're into fall of 2019.
Fall 2019. Okay, so yeah, we push into that time period, I guess, and I remember it's kind of when the whole COVID thing kicked off is really what stands out, because everything before that is just so much happened and jam-packed in those 2 years that everything like right before it kind of just like, I mean, not that it's irrelevant, but it just doesn't stand out
right
in that sense.
That's
fair. So I remember going into that school year, kicked it off like any other school year. I believe this was actually my 2018. Let me see, 26. Yeah, 2018 was actually my first year going into as a teacher. I was a paraprofessional in ISS before that, but so I mean it was exciting. I finally got picked up as an educator, and then.
So what was your first? What subject did you get picked up for?
It's called reading intervention.
Okay.
So it's the students that struggle and they need that little extra help. So it's a secondary reading class for them. And just going into that school setting that I specifically went into, it's known to be a rougher.
Did you stay at the school? So when you were doing ISS and all that stuff,
Mhm.
did you stay in that same school and
No.
just pick up a job? So you had to move schools?
I had to move schools.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I had to move to another school. They're the ones that gave me the chance. And I remember going into that school. and it's just known for being a rough school, just in general. So I kind of, the excitement of going into it and not knowing what to expect, getting my first group of kids, because in ISS you don't necessarily have your set students. It's just, whoever's getting in trouble, they're coming in. It's a revolving door.
I was listening to our second one-on-one that we had and listening to the ISS part. It's like, man, dude,
Yeah.
it's wild. Anyways,
Oh, for sure, for sure. I actually, we had this past couple weeks, we had a kind of like an assignment to do for us, where they pulled us out of our classrooms, and it was a lot of downtime, just like we're doing paperwork and stuff like that, and just talking with each other. And I got to pull up a lot of my ISS stories in there, because a lot of the teachers, I kind of lay low there at the campus that I'm at, and so a lot of them were like, hey, well, like, where have you taught before this, and what have you done? And I was like, oh, I did ISS. And they're like, what was that like? And I'm like, oh, I have stories.
Let's go. Right.
Yeah, like what story can I tell first?
Where do you start?
Yep. And when I went over the spectrum with them, they were kind of like, what? So like, I have stories of where I caught a kid with a homemade tattoo gun that they made, and they were tattooing in the restroom. And I'm like, whoa, my gosh! Like,
and what grade were they in?
They were in 7th grade.
Oh my god!
Yeah, because I tell people I've had 6th graders with tattoos. I have had 7th graders that have full sleeves. 8th graders, obviously, they're
If they're getting them in 6th and 7th grade, they're
yeah.
These particular students are gonna have them in 8th grade.
Yep. So when I tell them that things like that, they're like, oh my god, because I had the same mindset going in. It was like, oh, they're middle school. How bad could middle school be? And man, I got an awakening there. Yeah. So I did that for about 5 years, and so till about that school year, 2018, believe the 2018-2019 school year.
Okay.
And so I started August. August came around. September, kind of getting my rhythm into it. It was a very rough first year for me, getting into that setting, because it was just it was almost like a sink or swim. Like, here you go. This is where you're at, and boom. Go ahead.
Okay, so I can tie in kind of the way they started you at ISS. They're like, hey, you're gonna figure out your system. Go. Go figure. You're allowed to go figure it out. There's some freedom. There's a freedom there. If you try to pull up the optimistic, it's like there's a freedom to like being able to create your program, your system.
Definitely.
Anyway, same thing now. Fast 5 years later, now reading guys like, hey, go.
It's just a different setting now. Yeah, like, here you go. These are your kids, and kind of go ahead.
Your roster.
Yeah, and I had I talked to a couple people that were in that classroom before me. They kind of gave me some tips, some pointers, and stuff like that. But I had a lot of people that were like, well, what did you do in your student teaching? What did you do in your student teaching? I'm like, I didn't do student teaching. I was able to count my ISS time as my student teaching.
That's your, like, clinical, basically.
Yes.
Like clinical hours if you're in medicine. But
so I was able to accumulate hours through there, and that's what I was doing. But there's no lesson plan. There's no doing very much in ISS. So I kind of just got dropped in the tank there, and was able to get my rhythm going. I remember November comes around, and
November of 2019.
November 2019, and that's when people kind of started getting like sick, I guess. Okay. And we started having meetings and talking about COVID.
Yeah, there's whispers at this time.
Yeah, there was whispers around this time, like, hey,
because I tell you what, man. I mean, even where I was in a limbo stage, what we call it.
Okay.
And so I didn't know about COVID until like into maybe February of 2020.
Yes.
Like I'm considering my work and who I work for.
Yep.
It was like, I didn't hear about a lot less than me. I was like, what are y'all, like, y'all are crazy. Like, I was thinking y'all are crazy. Like, I don't know what y'all are talking about.
So that was always in the back of my mind. Like, like I saw things on Instagram and Facebook and things like, and I was like, like kind of just brushed it off.
Yeah.
And then November going into December, they kind of call us in, they call us all into the library, and they kind of tell us like, hey guys, we might want to start doing the hygiene things, like washing your hands, sharing this with the kids, telling the kids not to share stuff as much, and like, okay, either way, we're like, this is flu season. We're used to kids getting sick during this time.
For sure.
I tell everybody, like, there's 2 times that usually I'll get sick, and it's one of them is right when we come back to school.
Yep.
And then another one for some reason is like Christmas time.
Okay,
so deep,
August, like
and
deep flu season.
Yeah,
December-ish.
So most of the time I'll pick it up once or twice there, and then I kind of go about it through the year. But this time I remember Jekka got sick in November. I got sick around that same time. Just a regular like cold symptoms, stuff like that. It wasn't too bad. So we weren't really focused on
Because
COVID too
COVID
much.
tests weren't a thing.
They weren't a
yet.
thing then.
Yeah, they weren't.
They weren't
thing.
around.
It was just talking because like, oh, this virus in overseas is existing.
And that's
so
the thing.
It
it was
wasn't like,
oh,
hey, there's no. We're cutting short. Anyway, it wasn't like there was testing yet.
Yes.
It was just people were sick and it's flu season, so kind of makes sense either way.
But that was the thing. It was overseas. It was kind of like out of sight, out of mind.
Yeah.
wasn't really a big deal. So then we come back from Christmas break, which actually I believe they extended us a week on Christmas break because of that. They wanted to see what was kind of going on. We go into the school year, and then March happens, and kids just start dropping like. And when I say dropping like flies, like this is just not normal for this time of year for kids to be getting sick. Like you'll have one or two, but I remember in one of my class periods, I had 12 kids out. Like I had 12 kids that just didn't, like they were just out. And same thing, they like flu-like symptoms and everything like that. And so that's when I was kind of like,
a lot, yeah, for sure.
And we got all the way up to the week before we go back. And I remember telling the kids, like at this point, it was from the back of my head kind of moving forward and saying like, hey, you know what, maybe you might want to stay away from some of these kids. I told them like, you stay away from my desk. Don't get near me. Don't cough on me.
Yeah.
And I had one girl that just, oh man, she gave me problems. Like she just was a very, very outspoken student. And she...
Oh, what grade were you teaching?
7th.
Okay.
7th grade. So she was very outspoken. She wasn't afraid to tell you how it is. I remember, and she like cussing people out.
Sounds like some of your ISS students.
Definitely. Well, the demographics are very similar from the small group that I got at my old school to the entire school that I'm at now.
Yeah.
And this is a campus that like, it's a massive campus for a middle school. So we have like high school numbers.
I've been.
Yes.
I've been. So I know what you're talking about.
Exactly. So we always say like, you can survive that school, you survive anywhere. Like that's just the way it is.
That one in the elementary next to it.
Oh, yeah, definitely. For sure. The 6th graders coming in now, and I'm like for getting ready for next year, like mentality. I'm like, you got this. Like, let's go. Anyways, I remember this girl one day comes in, walks into my classroom, and she's just down, like just not really talking, not really doing anything. And at this point, even though these kids give you a really tough time, you still get that soft spot for them.
Yeah.
So I go up to her and I'm like, hey, like, are you okay? What's wrong? And yeah. And she kind of stands up. She's like, I don't feel good. And I put my hand on her head just to feel like, does she have a fever? Because they didn't give us the thermometers at this time. It was just,
right.
It was just like a little simple first aid kit, Band-Aids, like the Neosporin stuff.
Literally immediate intervention to go to the nurse.
Yes.
Call an ambulance if it's anything beyond.
Yep.
If you see blood, you're probably gonna call an ambulance. Sometimes depending on what it is.
For sure. So I do that, and she's burning up. So I'm like, no, you got to go to the nurse, right? And she goes, and I have another kid that's like in the back, like sneezing and everything. Oh. And he's like, well, can I go too? And I'm like, no. I said, well, hold on, let me write you a pass. And I turn around, I write the pass. I come back around, he sneezes, just, and I'm like, oh no, like, get out, like, go. I'll send the pass, just go, right? So he leaves, and sure enough, about 3 days later, I start coughing. I'm like,
this is full exposure, man.
Yes.
Pre-masks, everything.
Yeah. So this is the week before spring break of 2020. Yeah, it's already 2020 at this point.
Yeah,
yes.
it has to be because you were November, December-ish when you had gotten sick. You and Jessica had kind of gotten sick. But then if that's first, then by this time.
So by this time we go, So we're in March, and it's the week before spring break. Well, then, we finish out the week. I'm getting really sick at this point, and I'm still going to work because at this time I don't know COVID, not COVID, anything like that. Because like I said, at this time we still don't even have tests, and we get that week off. And I remember we were supposed to go to Houston that week, and we ended up not because I just got so sick. It lasted up until like mid to the end of that week, and then we just didn't go back to school. Like I had a conversation with my kids. Being spring break right now.
Yep.
So this is approximately
exactly. It's been 2 weeks this year.
Yeah.
2 years.
2 years this week.
And 2 weeks this year. Okay.
I told my kids, I go, you guys are 7th graders. Do y'all realize the last time that you were physically in class the day before spring break started was 2 years ago? Y'all were 5th graders, and they were like mind blown. What?
I can't even imagine that. Yeah.
Yeah. So when that happened, like I said, that's kind of when everything just kicked off, and we had no idea that we weren't going to be going back to school for 2 years.
Yeah.
And then we went into virtual learning and everything like that. and that was interesting in itself. Everything.
So to interlude so we're now in COVID.
Yes.
You go through spring break, then they say, "Hey, we're not coming back."
Well, so we went into spring break, and the week hit, and I remember getting a text. I have a group chat with all the coaches, and they're like, "Did y'all hear? Did y'all hear?" They're excited, like, "We're not going back for another week." And we're like, "What?" Like, no, it's fake. Like, we went on
There's no
Facebook, every check, and sure enough, oh man, we're not going back.
Yeah.
So a week, they extended it, and then they extended an additional 2 weeks. And then from there, they kind of had to make the decision, like, we're not coming back this school year, which there was already talk before that.
Wild,
yeah,
man. So wild. Yeah.
and that's when we started virtual learning. Like, they said we weren't coming back that school year, but that's when they kind of introduced, like, hey, start creating a classroom, start doing all these things, because we don't know what next school year is going to look like. And so we got a couple trainings and stuff like that. We started dabbling in the virtual classroom experience, and then we went into summer. But that's when it was like lockdown, like curfew, can't leave your house.
Yeah. And for I was talking about this briefly because Matt Rodriguez is also a teacher. Right?
Oh, okay.
So he's been in the same boat as you all. You know, it's virtually in the same boat as you all. So but I also have the intent of repeating some of these things because the experience is like the same but different, right? And my thing is like I am personally curious because for me, the work ramped up, not down for me, because I worked in a hospital and there's a bunch of stuff. That's why I'm saying for me it changed. So the pace actually went up times 10 versus like a down times 10 for my personal like what my work asked of me. So that's why it's like I forgot what I was even going to go into, but just the fact of that and going to so how long? So you took. So it was spring break, a week off, then they extended 2 more weeks. But you all started virtual, what? Basically, I mean,
we were going
just for like the last month, basically?
Yeah, it was just really the last month. Because that whole time, they weren't telling us to teach. It was just wait it out and see what they're going to say.
Yeah.
And then finally, about the last month of school was when they, like, okay, let's try and get these kids to log on. Let's try and make our classrooms. Let's try and teach something.
Yeah.
Because we had already knew, like, the testing and all that was done. Yeah.
It was done.
And so, and then we went. That was pretty much how the end of that school year happened.
Yeah, end of 2020.
Yeah,
man. To this day, and it's more close to home because my cousin was supposed to graduate 2020, or he graduated, but like to be your senior. I mean, I can't imagine my senior year spring break. Like you're supposed to have fun spring break,
exactly,
and like to then be delayed, then to have virtual class for like your last month of senior year, like. And to not walk and that whole experience, like, and it's not even like that big a deal because I remember the mindset then. Like, I could care less. I have mentioned this before in podcasts where it's like, my junior year, I was ready to move on. Like by my junior year, I knew I was done with high school. like all I wanted to do was marching band, play baseball, and be done. Like I was school wise, I was done. And then senior year, I just took a bunch of electives just to kind of get by or whatever. But
complete opposite senior year for me. I tell people this and I say it laughing because my senior year I took.
Mike's close if you want to.
Oh,
I'm saying, but yeah, we can move it.
Well, I was just moving here, so. But my senior year I took 4 English classes.
I think I. Yeah.
Yeah.
I remember that. I remember that. Or we talked about it after where you said you had taken 4 English classes. Like,
and people look at me like, "What? Why?" And I'm like,
"Because I needed to."
Because I had to. I was a very. I wasn't the greatest student.
Right. Oh, dude, that's so funny. Anyways, and I guess just to close up the point of like, man, like I think about those seniors, and because I have one, that he was supposed to graduate in that time, and that's just one. We're talking about the world, at this point, for those that.
Yep.
And I've always been one to go into a macro standpoint where it's like, and it took me a while because again, my work ramped up, so I had micro decisions to be making, and every day was different. CDC was releasing this, and we had to make sure we had this, and then one thing we talked about yesterday was like then the toilet paper thing.
Oh,
it's like,
yes.
Bro.
The toilet paper, the meat, everything.
Toilet paper shortage, and you're walking to the groceries. For those that that you're able to go to a grocery store again when that happened.
Yeah.
When everything kind of opened up slowly, it's like, oh my god, dude! Like
I remember one of my cousins sent me a picture. This guy had like 17 briskets in his basket, like just grabbed everything he could, and I'm like, that guy's got his priorities set straight.
Yeah,
it's gonna be smoking briskets all
right. And brisket, like you can smoke it, so it takes a while to cook it, so then that makes time just kind of pass by too. It's like, well,
I
you're not
guess
doing anything.
so. Yeah, that or I don't know. Maybe he was gonna resell it or something.
That would have been a good idea. Start, like non contact delivery
Yeah.
for brisket.
For brisket, it's in high demand down here. Yeah.
No kidding, right? Man, that's crazy. So well, I guess it seems like because the question I asked yesterday, I guess maybe this is why he wasn't able to. I feel like we never got like I guess I was more curious on how long it took people to become bored. But if there was so much uncertainty, then there was no really downtime then for you all because you guys went 2 weeks off, and then started kind of transitioning to this virtual thing. So you were having to learn basically a new process.
Well,
to
I mean,
potentially
for
teach
us, just for the younger generation, I'm going to say we're somewhat tech savvy already.
Yeah.
So the learning curve wasn't drastic for us.
It wasn't crazy.
It wasn't like some of the older veteran teachers that have been in it since like back when we used overhead
when we were in
projectors,
school,
like those old school plastic sheets with the vis-a-vis markers.
Dude, I was talking about that before I left to Southern California. I was talking about them like, man, I still remember using projectors and like whatever.
Yep.
And So anyways, yeah.
So I think
those teachers that have to deal with RBS
yes.
technology.
So I talking to a few of the other teachers or hearing, because we still had staff meetings and everything like that, and hearing them like struggle. They were struggling with it. So I feel like the experiences overall was very subjective to how you taught as an educator, and some people like the technology way, and they were already doing it prior to COVID. They were using all these apps that we started using once that hit, and then you have the old school teachers that like refused to jump into technology, and now they're forced to jump into technology, and we were able to see that. But it really wasn't until the following school year that it was like, okay, now you need to do this.
Yeah, this is what we're doing.
Yeah, because was all
of 2021 virtual? Was it all virtual?
Yeah, the entire school year. No, actually, no. Well, it was all virtual for students. It wasn't completely virtual. I believe the last like 2 months, they had teachers go back to campus, and we were teaching from campus, but we had like a select few of students that would show up. And we were like sitting at like 20%. Like
I'll say, was it 50%? What was it? Okay, because you said think of 20% per like grade level and whatever. So that in a it's still a lot of people in one in the building.
It's a lot of people in the building, but once you broke it up into classrooms, like I was sitting at like 3-4 kids tops in my class, and I had like 15 online or 13 online. So
how was that decision made? Do you know? I mean, roughly, do you know like how who was it just based on like who could come in, like who, because they probably weren't doing bus routes.
So
you think it was based on just
it was based on they sent out a survey and they asked like who would be willing to come to campus, and actually they did have a bus route now that I think about it, but everything was like real, like you had to follow the protocol. So before the kid gets on the bus, they were temperature checking, no fever, gets on the bus, no symptoms, whatever, and then from there when they get off, again, temperature checking the
Was it the forehead one?
Yeah, it was the forehead. We had the foreheads. We had like the thermal. I remember there was like this thermal thing that they tried, and it was just like it didn't work.
Thermal, was it like where you like put your forehead on?
Yes.
It? Yeah.
So we used all that.
I've been to hospitals that have like 4 of those. Like you go up and it tells you you're good or no good.
Yeah. So we did that, and then also like you would have to ask your kids questions before they came in the room, and even then, I remember there was still kids getting pretty sick when we first started coming back.
And you can imagine like, kids were probably coming sick because also like I was like you, where when I go back to school I would get like strep throat.
Yeah.
I would get something because of all the air and all the dust particles. I would remember getting sick too. So I can imagine some of these kids because I got to see it at the hospital where like people were just getting sick because of a new environment or whatever. And it's like they in fact don't have COVID, but you have to make sure. You have to make sure.
So at this time now,
especially if they have a cough, running anything like that, you have to make sure if they have any of the symptoms, you have to verify
for sure. And then you have the kids that hide it,
right? That I would say either they hide it or you have the asymptomatic person who, for them, they actually don't have symptoms, but then you swab them whenever they're positive. It's like, oh, bro, like you're go home for 2 weeks.
Our principal actually not too long ago tested. He was asymptomatic. Like we just happened to have a thing, and they just let me show up, and we're like, oh, what? Yeah, so that's when teachers and students kind of got that like, oh my gosh, like it could be there still, and
I have the conversation even now. Like I went to go run at UTRGV the past 2 nights I've been going over the run, and they have I guess they're a student newspaper called the Rider.
Okay.
And on the bottom of the Rider, it had like the COVID count, like percentages, and it was very vague, but it was there in the bottom corner, and it's like, I mean, it is that's the thing, and my argument, this is because I was having a conversation with my mom because she's like, well, it's still a real thing, and look how many people, it's still 1,600 something. I'm like, I'm not saying don't be careful, but like, I also, and I'm going on a limb here, and this is purely my opinion. I have to say that, but like, the thing is, like, but don't be scared of the like, I personally don't see why the numbers are still on the newspaper.
Yeah.
Be mindful, clean your hands, stay away from people you don't know.
Yeah, for sure.
But that's stuff we already know that we should be doing.
Yeah.
For me, it's
definitely.
like the fact that they have the COVID numbers still on the newspaper. It's like, why don't you have the flu numbers on the newspaper? That's what I'm saying. This is my opinion. I'm kind of opening up kind of worms, but like, I'm curious to your opinion. But like, I wanted to state it because I'm like, well, Mom, like, because she's like, well, it's still a thing. I'm like, it's gonna be a thing.
Yeah.
But so is the flu.
True. Exactly.
So the flu is a thing too.
Well, that was the thing. The flu kind of went away with that all happened, man. Yeah. And I remember, for me, there was like phases throughout this whole experience.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And I remember starting off and just reading things and constantly reading things and letting it get to you. And I was just like, oh my gosh. And there was that fear part of it. Like, at first, when the way that they reported it and everything was the way things were being said. And it was like, oh man.
Yeah.
And then seeing, like, I believe it was Italy at the time that was just had the crazy numbers.
Yeah.
And
they were one of the first, I think one of the first countries to like re-spike, and they got really bad for them for a little while.
So it didn't really hit me up until I remember I on Snapchat, I was going through stuff, and sometimes there's like those little news outlet things. Mm-hmm. And then there was one that said like outbreak of flu. And I was kind of in my mind, the thing that I thought, and like, I guess this is my personal opinion of it.
Right.
I'm going to say is like, since when did flu like become an outbreak? Yeah. Like, we've had the flu. Well, I don't understand why that is news right now. And that's when I was kind of like, like, I get it. It's there. I understand that it's there. But at the same time, I'm not going to fear it as like being all like, oh my gosh.
Yeah.
And I understand that it grinds some people's gears because everybody had a very different experience with this. Yeah. And that's 100%. One thing.
100%.
And especially down here, and maybe it's a cultural thing down here, is just like everybody's so tightly niched with their family.
Yeah.
So like somebody's grandma's brother's cousin caught it, or somebody's abuelita caught it.
Their dad got it.
Yeah, like, oh no.
And then they have hypertension. They have
and then down here it's.
And in my head, I'm like, oh, and I hear those things too. I'm like, I'm like, and it gives me anxiety because like by this time, so now let's say we're talking like late 2020. I'm now in the emergency room, working emergency room, so I'm seeing the fall of 2020. So I'm seeing the uprise of the general flu, but then now mixed with COVID. So now everybody's getting tested. Everybody's coming in positive, not positive, but they have the flu. Blah blah blah. So like my anxiety did rise. Like how I mean. It's not an argument, but it's like, how could it not? Like, not that I see it for myself, because again, I try to take advantage of my time off and stuff like that. But like in being in the moment, especially in an emergency room, it's like how like my anxiety would rise. I attribute it to my hypertension that I accumulated, in 2020 and 2021.
But definitely, well, no, I think like everybody's human, so everybody at some point or another had some kind of scare with it, I guess.
Yeah, which rightfully so, especially for sure 2020.
Yeah, for sure, when everything first came out.
Yeah, when it was new, especially here in the United States, like I 100% agree, because there's a time where I told my team, I said, hey guys and girls, I said, we might be here for a minute. I'm like, I don't know.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know. I wish I could have a better answer for you, and like my leadership, because the thing is, we were all in the same boat, all of us, because even us as medical personnel, or just when you listen to the news and trying to make the best decision, because well, some of these people haven't seen their families in a year. I was on that same boat.
Yeah.
And it's like, now with COVID, it's like, I'm like, hey guys, I don't know when we're gonna get out of this thing.
Yeah. And
so eventually we did, because then numbers started coming out, and obviously we had that first fall of like numbers, like let's say the summer, like late August, September, to get ready then for the flu time, right? Where it came the next spike, which makes total sense. But it was just it was a crazy time. That's like yes, in 2020, we had every right to just be like what's gonna happen next. We have no idea.
Yeah, so 2020 was a very interesting time. We went into summer, we went into lockdown here where we're at, and it was like if you weren't above a certain age, you weren't allowed to leave your house for a it was only for like necessities. And I remember one of my coworkers got pulled over, and he put like, I just got pulled over, can you believe that? He went out to get water from a water mill, and they asked him like, well, where are you going? He had to prove to the officer like, hey, this is
I
what
got
I'm
10
doing.
gallons of water
Yeah,
in
and he
my
was like,
truck,
I have
back in my truck.
the things back here, and he was like, oh, okay, like make sure you go there and go home. And so I remember like it got like locked down.
That's crazy. Is he like and it, good.
To think that like in the back of your mind, it's almost like that never happens, you know, like,
It's a
and for it
movie.
to act,
It's
yeah,
like
that's
a
like
movie.
something you would see in a movie, like, oh my God, we're in quarantine, like, and so for it to actually happen, like the whole experience was just very interesting. But during that time period, we were actually working on buying a house,
Mhm.
which because that happened in 2020.
Okay.
So how it happened in 2020, no
Yeah,
clue.
And that's why I made a note. And I want to kind of bring it up because I know that happened. It's a big step, especially given if people go back listen to I think it's 70 71 and then 74. I think let me get it real quick. So let me see. So the first one me and you did was episode 70, which is
Mhm.
May 2018, and then 71 was May 2018, and then 74 was June 2018. And so and in there we had gone through. So people technically need to go listen to that to understand like the process of now actually getting a house.
Yes.
Like that, because you had the house your family owns, but you guys weren't.
Yeah.
You guys weren't the owners of the house. And
So,
now you have
like
now you're in 2020 in this limbo of getting a house.
Yeah, I was gonna say like just a quick little recap into that was just we were living in a house that we were technically renting. It was my parents' house, and we just kind of were there for, and it was crazy. We think about it, we're like, man, we were there for 5 years, and it didn't seem like 5 years had gone by. And so finally, we were presented with the opportunity to buy my grandparents' house, and it was crazy because like it was something that really what we didn't think was gonna happen. It just kind of went down the whole chain of everybody, like elders, as far as elder, like my older cousins, my brother, and it
So
kind of
they got like a first dib, like a dibs type. Like is that what you're saying? Or
so
what do you
okay,
mean?
yeah. So what happened was my uncle passed away,
Okay.
and he was the one that really kept up with the whole ranch.
Yep.
Like that was his pride and joy. Like he loved it, and my grandparents, you know, they're older,
Yeah.
and so it's a little bit too much for them. So the thought process or the thought process
the
came up.
consideration of like, okay,
There you go.
Who's going to take over the house once?
Well, the consideration of selling the whole property, just outright selling,
Okay.
getting rid of it came up, and everybody in the family was kind of like you can't do that. Like this place,
How many acres is it?
it's 9.82, so 10
Okay,
acres,
almost, about 10 acres.
about 10 acres. But the history behind that house is with our family is just crazy. It's housed so many members of our family that have lived there, stayed there, like grew up there.
All the way, I mean, that all of our lifetime.
Well, all the way down to it's crazy because like Rolly's side of the family, they housed Israel,
Okay,
and some of the family members from there.
Gotcha.
And so then also I have a cousin that lived in, I believe, Vegas, Nevada. I'm just gonna say Nevada. She, I remember, came down and she lived with us for a long time. So it's housed and been a home for a lot of people. And so to see that kind of be like thrown up in the air that it's going to be gone, everybody was like, no.
There's no way.
Well, then it was like, okay, well, so then let's go ahead and see the fair way of giving this, or not giving this, but allowing this property to stay in the family. And it was like you said. So it started out with my uncle's daughters, asked them if they would like to buy it. They couldn't buy it, or they just, I don't know the financial situations or anything, but it was turned down. Went to the siblings, as far as my uncle's siblings. So my mom, my aunt, my uncle, all of them already have their houses. They've already have their lives pretty much established. And so that just wasn't on the table for them. And then it went to my older brother, or it went to their children, which me and my brother are the oldest as far as the cousins, I guess, or my cousins.
Yeah.
And my brother kind of wanted it, sort of, but there were going to be some, I guess, stipulations that come along with buying it, I guess.
Okay.
Just as
like conditions, like
yes.
Like, okay.
So there was gonna be conditions as far as buying it, and which I had already kind of set those conditions to myself before even like being offered it.
Yeah.
It was like you can like don't tear the house down, don't. Well, that was actually really one of the
That
main
was
ones.
the
It
main
was
one.
just,
Like,
yeah, just
don't rebuild.
don't rip it down to rebuild something because that's like the whole purpose of this. And so when my brother heard that, he's like, no, like I don't want that. He's like, I would
Gotcha.
tear the house down and I would rebuild mine. And I was like, okay, like whatever.
That's fine.
Yeah. So then it came to me and I was like, no, I want to leave this the way it was, the way it is, like kind of build upon where it's at already. Um, we started, looking into it, seeing if it was possible. Went and saw if we could get approved for it, and we did, and that's when the process kind of just kicked off. And everything was just like it was like email and virtual meetings and stuff like that. And okay, we got to get this in order, and like it was cool. It was a cool process. It was an interesting process.
Yeah, but
it took a while, and then I remember it finally happened, and we went to go sign, and we were kind of like, it didn't hit. I remember we signed, and I was like, all right, cool, like let's go. We're going back to the house that we still live at.
Yeah,
because everything with COVID. Because when we bought the house, we didn't move right in.
and that I was because I wasn't here, so I was kind of confused. I'm like, well, they signed, but I don't think they moved yet.
Yeah, no.
But I was confused, but it's more because I just wasn't home. I just wasn't home. I'm like, do they live there? I was like,
no. So
what's the deal?
My grandparents were living there.
Yeah.
And that was another thing that we had said, that we weren't going to kick my grandparents out, obviously. So we were going to continue to have them live there with us. And since the whole COVID thing was going on, we didn't want to move back in right away because we were getting ready to go back to school.
Gotcha.
And we were going to be doing it in person at this time.
Yeah.
And so I was like, I don't want to go to work, come back, get sick, bring it to my grandparents, and then that just how that goes. So we stood off for a while. Then everything kind of started to calm down, and we're like, you know what? We've kind of got this rhythm going. We kind of know we can be careful. There's enough space to keep our distance and everything. And like okay, let's make the move. So we slowly moved in, and it wasn't until that happened when we moved in, and it wasn't until I remember the moment that we were standing in the back. I had just done something in the shed, and we looked out, and we were like looking at the distance as far how far it goes, and I was just like we own this.
Yeah.
And Jack was like, yeah, we do. I'm like, that's crazy. Like I mean, it's because for people to know me the way I am, like I'm not, I don't know, like I'm a jokester.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm a real big jokester. You can't really take anything I say seriously. And which I actually have to put that on my Instagram here in a bit. Like, guys, don't take anything I just posted seriously, because I put about my fans and everything.
Yeah.
And so I don't know, just people like when they're like, "Wow, you bought a house! Like that's so cool! Like it's an accomplishment to do." And it was like I don't know. I didn't expect. I don't know. I just didn't expect it from me. Like in a way, like I figured something like that would take me a lot longer.
Yeah, it'd be a little bit farther down the road.
Yeah.
To actually be able to do as far as getting a house.
Yeah. And so that was just
how long did it
cool.
take? I'm not curious, but I guess I'm curious about like the actual was it 6 months? Like because it took a while for like the whole process. I'm more curious about just the time that it took. Like was it like 6 months? Like,
it was about 7, 8 months.
Okay.
Because I remember we were almost gonna have to run our credit and everything and do a whole new process because our deadline ran out. But it wasn't because of us. It was just with COVID and everything. It was
the delay of communication and running everything. Okay.
It just took a lot longer.
Yeah.
And almost to the point where we're like, you know what, like we're just gonna hold off. But then I remember they got back to us and we kind of finished the process and we were able to do that. And then from there, it's been fun because we've been there. So 2020.
When did y'all move in? Was it like the end of 2020, 2021?
I believe it was still 2020 when we moved in. It was kind of like we were jumping back and forth. I remember we jumped back and forth for a while, just because I remember we'd be like, "Oh, you got exposed to a case in your class," and we're like, "Okay, well, like we're gonna go stay at the house in town, or I'll go stay there and for a night or two and make sure we're good.
Yeah,
and
just make sure you're good.
yeah, and then we get tested and we can go back or whatever. But it wasn't until this past school year, I believe, that we kind of like were set.
Yeah, yeah.
Well, no, actually, I think before that we were kind of like, okay, we're here. That's when all the work began that comes along with it.
Like what? I'm curious because you talked about like being a handyman at your house while you're kind of in limbo being a job and stuff.
Try to be.
So right. Well, you learned some stuff because you had like I was re-listening, so I was like, so you had like some water lines break at this house and like shutting down the water, and like your dad had moved it under the water hose. So
yes,
like, all the little things I remember. So it's interesting that you had to. So did you go through that like that? Was it like
not as
things to that,
not as severe as that,
or
so
like upgrade type stuff?
It's more upgrade type stuff.
Okay.
If you think about like
your water lines that didn't break or haven't broken.
No water lines have broken. I'm gonna cross my fingers there.
Yeah.
No, man, that's crazy. I hadn't thought about that in a while.
Yeah.
We redug out.
Yeah, I was literally running this morning. I'm like, I need to get mine because again we hadn't talked. But I was like, well, I'm also not trying to come in here with like zero plan. You know, I'm like,
yeah.
I need to see what we've talked about and kind of manipulate and maneuver through that. Anyways.
Yeah. No. So nothing to that extreme. But if you think about it, I mean that house has been in the family. I believe when did they build it? 81.
Okay.
I believe is when they built it.
Mm.
And if you think about it, since 81, they've just been accumulating stuff over time and just things, gather.
Yeah, no, I know. That's how this room was before I got here.
Exactly. So it's cleaning up. I remember for a good while we were just like throwing trash and burning and just fixing things up. We've done a couple upgrades to as far as the house itself. Like we put in a whole new floor. Because it was old school. Like we had a sunken living room.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, and it was like people falling, my grandparents falling. I fell several times, and I was like, let's just fill this in.
When did y'all do that?
It's been maybe 5-6 months that we did that.
Okay.
That one was fairly new.
Okay. I was thinking, I feel like I went over there and I can remember there being something.
A step down.
Yeah.
And then this time you go and it's just.
Yeah, I'm like, maybe it's just me.
No,
it's like a Matrix moment because like I'm not too sure, but like it's not really, it's not really pertinent. Like, but like I just couldn't remember. Maybe it was just me. It's one of those like what's it called, butterfly effect?
Yep.
Like butterfly effect. Like Fruit Loops. How do these spell Fruit Loops? Like there's different ones. I forgot. Like I don't know if it's Fruit Loops or not. But
what's it called? The Mandela effect.
Or Mandela effect. Sorry, I was like butterfly, not butterfly. Mandela.
The
effect.
Mandela effect.
I can't remember what it was, but there's like. Cheese it or I don't. There's several.
There's a lot.
There's a bunch of them.
Bernstein Bears, Cheez-Its,
yeah.
A lot. Like there's actually a test on Instagram that I took, and I'm like, what? Get them all wrong.
Anyways, so back to that. So little upgrades you did little upgrades like that.
Yeah.
And so far, okay, and getting rid of some as well.
Getting rid of a lot. I've already the big dumpster. What do they call like those holloways? Mm-hmm. I've already like gotten like 3 of them, filled them all up.
Really? Dang, that's a lot. I mean, that's a lot of stuff.
It is, and there's still.
I feel like I wanted one of those for this room, but I didn't need that. It wasn't that drastic. I'm being dramatic, but man, dude, like there's just so much stuff. So I can imagine, like, it's a lot.
And then of course we have the hay baling that we do, and that was pretty good this last cutting season. Went through the winter, so we're getting ready to kind of kick that back up once the grass starts growing again. Okay. And I told myself that's a kind of one of my goals for this one is keep up with that a little bit better. Yeah. Because I did. With the whole COVID thing, I passed up a lot of cuts actually that I could have done, and I want to be better with as far as that. Yeah. The animals that we're starting to get, we plan on making additions.
You told me the other day that you guys finally got your duck eggs. I think it was Saturday because you were out fishing, and I want to get into that, but
the ducks started laying.
We finally got some duck eggs. I'm like, oh really? Like, that's dope. Like, that's cool.
So the chickens, I remember the chickens took a while. I think we started out with like 6 chickens, and they took forever to start laying. And we were kind of like, well, we're new. We don't know anything about this.
Right.
It's like, do these things even really lay eggs? And once they got settled in, they started laying. And then we're like, oh, okay, cool. Like we're getting maybe 6 a day, 7 a day. And we're like, well, let's ramp it up. Let's get some more. So we can get like a dozen a day. And so right now, I think with the elements that are with
powers that be,
nature taking its course, we've have 10 chickens. Okay. 9 we just gave away our male,
Rooster.
The rooster.
I was like,
The male.
It's 'cause that's why. And funny side note joke is that we were little. This was years ago. My cousin Gavin was still living like here in Texas and stuff. And in that moment, I didn't get tongue twisted, but that just reminded me of this time. And my grandpa had just sold one of the bulls we had there. And I said the male cow.
The male cow.
Gavin was like, "Oh yeah, I sold that cow, and then he sold that one. He sold that one." I'm like, "Oh, the male cow."
Wow.
Bro, dude, it was one of those like moments, like Freudian slips.
The male chicken.
Like, yeah. I'm like the rooster, right?
The
Like,
rooster. Yes, we got rid of our
It's not
rooster.
even to correct you, it's because it reminded me of me. I'm like,
No,
oh,
no.
I've had that
But
moment before.
I have those brain farts sometimes.
Good.
Like the other day, I mean, just the brain
Yeah.
farts that
Yeah.
happen. The other day, a guy came over for the driveway, and he asked me the same question, like, "What do you do and whatever, and what grade do you teach?" And I was like, and he was like, "You don't know what grade you teach?" I was like, "Man, just put me on the spot there." So that was one of those moments right there.
Oh,
but yeah, we gave away the rooster.
Mm-hmm.
He was just because he was aggressive, and we don't want little.
Yeah, I
like,
think I remember you saying that when I came back for New. When I was out here for New Year, I think you
Yeah,
saying that.
and we don't want chicks. Like we don't right now.
Yeah.
And a lot of people, it's funny because they're like, "I thought you need a rooster to have eggs," and it's like,
Nope.
no,
You don't.
chickens just lay
Yep,
eggs.
they just do.
So that's cool. We have plans to get several other animals. We're gonna fence off an area, get some cattle. There was a pig in the works. It still might be in the works. I don't know if we're supposed to be getting it sometime soon.
I
But
thought you got to return about. That's what you were all talking about yesterday,
Yeah.
right? Okay.
Well, I'm supposed
I
to.
assume that's what y'all were. I know it came up as far as pig. I'm like, oh, they're probably. I said this is all assumption, but I was just assuming that you guys were in the process of considering or whatever. And
So there's one pig.
Yeah.
We have the opportunity to get other pigs as well. So if this pig doesn't work out, we still have
There's
somebody
still
else there's somebody else that can provide us with pork,
bacon, American bacon, South Texas bacon.
Yeah, I've been on a real pork belly kick lately. So, but yeah, so just like that, things with the house, always something to do for sure. Just, these last 2 days I've been slacking, but tomorrow for sure I already have my list picked up that I got to do.
Yeah.
But that in itself has been a pretty interesting experience, going from, living in the city, which I mean, even then we just call it town. We're living in town, and to moving out there, it's was a small adjustment only because I grew up out there. I grew up here, obviously, but then moving out there in about 4th grade, kind of took some getting used to back out there, because now, I remember living here. Any little noise that happens outside, it's like, okay, we're in town. You're gonna hear people out there. You're gonna hear things. But now hearing it there, I'm like, it kind of takes me a second. Like, wait a minute.
Yeah, it's
like there should not be somebody out there.
Sound like that. Whatever that
Yeah.
It's not the way it is.
Or like the light on in the shed. Like, did I leave that on? Did somebody back there? Which we had one scare already, where like, I'm glad that I'm not gonna say I have trained for this specific moment, but just my thought process wasn't like, let me go out there and start.
Yeah, and freak out.
Yeah.
Like you freak out, like get your pistol.
Yeah, we had I still did, but in the sense, like, we had somebody come onto the property that wasn't supposed to be on the property.
Yeah.
We didn't know at the time, and they kind of drove into the back and they parked. And
that's
it was
even weirder.
Exactly. Just parked.
Like a whole ass vehicle, like just pulling out, like, hey, I don't know who you are.
Exactly. Like, I have no idea who you are. And so we called the sheriff and everything, and I got my gun. I went out there. I didn't have it like branded or anything. I put it in my holster. I had it tucked away and everything went. I didn't completely go straight to the vehicle. I just I said, you know what? We did call the sheriff. They're coming. He's not doing anything. I kind of like shined my light on the vehicle. He didn't really respond much, so I just kept my eye on there. I knew the guy was still in there. I could see him moving. And just waited it out. And then I was like, if he reacts, I react. That's gonna be something. I'm not gonna escalate the situation. So right now we're fine. So we waited a good, I believe, 10 minutes. Still had him there, and then his lights kicked on, and he started driving away. And that's when I kind of like, okay, no, Like
That's
I'm gonna
super weird, super
yeah,
sus,
I'm
bro.
gonna find out.
Super
So
sus.
well, he was driving out to the back, and the only way it's there's a little house in the back of our property, where my uncle lives, and he was headed that way. So I'm like, the only way he can go out there is going around the house. So I hopped in the Ranger and I kind of chased him down. He got off, and it turned out to be our neighbor that was drunk. He was drunk. He got into a fight with his girlfriend or wife, and he went to go sleep it off there in the back, and which I didn't know this at the time, but he was really good friends with my uncle, and my uncle would let him whenever he would drink or get drunk.
This situation has happened before, so he.
So I didn't know it at the time, but
right,
I'm glad I didn't go out there like, hey, man,
just raising a ruckus, raising just hell in a sense of like just hyper escalating just.
Oh yeah, for sure. So
that definitely could have happened.
Easily, yeah. And then of course with him being drunk, things can
could have been so much worse.
Yeah. So then called the sheriff, kind of explained what happened, and not to the full extent, just because they just asked us like, are y'all okay and whatever. And we're like, yeah, we're good. And the situation was taken care of.
Yeah.
Finally, when he sobered up, I talked with him and said like, hey man, you gotta let me know, like,
you can't just rolling up here, bro.
Because so I was calm, but I was pissed.
Yeah.
Because
I mean, it's
if anybody knows me, it really takes a lot to get to me, like,
Yep.
And in that instance, I went to go tell him like, hey man, don't be doing that. He was still drunk at that time, and he's like, what was his words, like, basically like, don't worry about it, way, like, it's not a big deal.
Yeah.
So right there I'm like, no,
it's
like,
not a big deal when you have a shot in your torso,
like
we have a single gunshot.
You're on my property right now, like, don't tell me it's not a big deal when and I remember yelling at him in that sense.
Yeah.
And at that point he kind of like, oh whoa, like, you're really mad. And then after that, the next day he came and he's like, I just want to apologize, like, I didn't mean to do that. It's because when your uncle was here that he used to let me. And I told him like, okay, that's fine, but you got to give me some kind of warning or let me know or call and tell me like, hey man, I'm going to be back there. Other than that, like, I'm cool with it.
Yeah.
And he was just like, no, yeah, I understand. And so it's funny now because whenever he comes in, if he comes in, because he hasn't really driven through our driveway, he'll drive around the back now, but he puts on his hazard lights, so we know exactly who he is.
That's y'all's.
Yeah, that's the communication, and he'll like stop and like look like, and I'm like, yeah, go.
So yeah, I know it's you now, bro. Like we're good. We're good now, but just understand, like, if
that.
You don't know who you are,
that first initial, you don't just drive into somebody's property, turn your lights off, and just park, like, sketch. But so we've had interesting things like that. It's been great.
One thing I have written down here, because I was going through your TikTok, so I can be like, okay, so I can see if there's anything else that I was like that I would be curious, and because you have a lot of fishing stuff. I think that's your primary like thing for TikTok, but it said Colorado. You had a hashtag Colorado, and like, So I knew you took a road trip. Did you only go to Colorado, or I thought you guys went like to other places, not just Colorado?
So we went.
But if you could give me your Colorado story or your road trip, whatever, because you all drove, right?
Yeah, we drove.
So I'd like to know that story.
We went into Rio Doso. We stayed in Rio Doso for a day, and then from there we drove up to Colorado. We were staying in Breckenridge, but we went up to Silverthorne, and then we also went to Denver for like a Renaissance fair. But yeah, the most time was spent in Colorado. That was awesome. That was great.
What made you all choose Colorado? Like,
one of our cousins was going, and we just got invited on the trip. And it was supposed to be like my cousins and some of our friends that we were gonna go up there. And if I remember correctly, because I'm not always in the loop with it, but two of our friends were supposed to get married up there. They were gonna do like a destination wedding thing, and then something happened that they just decided not to, and then it just became like a family trip to go up there. But so this kind of goes back to before COVID. Like, I'm going to say I wasn't a traveler at all. Like, I just had no interest in going places.
Interesting.
Very, very introvert in that aspect of it. And when COVID hit, I remember thinking like, man, like the fact I can't even leave my house, I took all of that for granted. So I'm like, first chance I get to go somewhere, I want to go somewhere. And it just happened to be Colorado. Yeah. And that was a pretty cool trip. We got to, I think the highlight of it was me and my cousin, I'm going to say climbing a mountain.
What elevation did y'all get to go to?
We were
You
at
don't remember?
what was it 13,000
That's
13,000 feet? I believe we got up to. It was a Mount Buffalo, I believe. Yeah, and I remember. So my cousin wanted to do this trail. Like he's like, "Let's go! I want to do it. I want to do it." I'm like, "Okay, bro. Like, we'll do the trail." And he's like, "Don't even worry about it. It's an easy trail. Like you're fine or whatever." And we're like, "All right, cool, yeah." We get there and we drive up, and I mean it's early morning, and we like the tree, everything. It's beautiful. Sun's coming up, and I don't really get the full like I don't see how big this place is, and so
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. 13,000 feet's not small.
yeah. So
That's a few hours.
it took us, I believe, 6-7 hours.
Yeah.
Ran out of water and shit. So we there's a lot that happens within this one trail, and that's why this sticks out to me the most. So it's three of us. It's me, my cousin Ray, and then my other cousin Reyes. And before I get into it, is Reyes is afraid of heights.
Okay.
So that takes place, and we start the trail. We go up, and it's all like forest, and it kind of slowly increases in elevation. You're going back and forth, in a zigzag motion, and we're following what we now know are called cairns. We didn't know. Oh my god! I think back and I realized how green I was to the whole experience, because I'm looking. I'm like, why are there a bunch of rocks stacked on top of each other? And they're like, I don't know, but that's cool, right? So we're like, as you go down the trail, there's a bunch of little rocks.
Yep. I know. I've seen them.
Didn't know, had no idea. I think I kicked over a few of them, to be honest with you. I had no idea. Like, I had never done a trail. And my cousin was just like, this is a beginner trail. Don't even worry about it. Like, we're safe. So I'm actually in these shoes right here.
Oh, Jesus.
Yes. So I take these shoes. I take like a bottle of water, and I take my coffee stuff, because I wanted to make a really cool TikTok or of drinking coffee on top of the mountain. Didn't happen. So we do the climb. We begin the climb. We're about 3 hours in going up, and we get to the halfway point where the tree line breaks, and then it becomes just a rock climbing up.
Right.
And we get to that point, and one of our cousins kind of looks down, Reyes, and he's like, I think this is it for me. And we're like, no big deal, whatever. Like, you're cool. Like, not that big of a deal.
Right.
He's like, I'll wait for you. We say, okay. We get up to the rocks and we start climbing up. We're like, we'll be back in an hour.
In an hour?
Stupidest line I've ever.
I'm like, no,
we're not.
In this for a long haul, guys.
Yeah. And so we end up going, and we're not following the cairns, because we don't know what cairns are at this point. And we're going up, and we come across this YouTube guy, and if you can actually bring up Mount Buffalo. Okay, so we run into this YouTube guy, and he's like decked out. He's got the hiking boots, got the sticks, the hiking sticks, backpack, water, like bladder and everything. He's all decked out. He's like, "What's up, guys? We're here at Mount Buffalo. I just want to give a shout out to whatever." And he's like, "These people right here. What's up, guys?" And we're like, "Hey, what's up, man?" Ran into some cool people in there, and he's just hauling it. He books it up. I think he gets up there like no problem, because by the time we got to the top, he was already halfway down, I think. Yeah, right there, cairns. We just said cairns. And we also ran into this old timer. We call him Old Man Jenkins, just because we didn't really get to formally meet him. He does that trail like every morning, and I realized that I messed up when I came across him, because the first thing he noticed was he called me out on my shoes. He's like, "Hey, how's it going, guys?" And we're like, "Hey, what's up?" And he's like, Are you climbing in tennies?" I said, "Yes." He's like, "That's not the smartest move." I said, I understand that. I just didn't realize we were going to be doing this kind of trail today. And he's like, man, I just want to tell you, please be careful. How true this is, I don't know how true it is, what he told me, but he's like, they've already had to medevac 3 people out this past week for broken ankles. And
I've seen torn Achilles, especially like on switchbacks. And most of them is because they're in tennis shoes. They're not in proper.
So when he tells me that, and I'm like, what? He goes, "Well, good luck. Have a great climb, guys. Bye." And he kind of just continues on his way. Yeah, that one, right? The one to the left of where you're right there. That
This
one.
one?
Yes, that's the one we went up. So that tree line right there. So actually, like
this tree line,
no. So we start
or talking about like
right there. So we're starting there. We kind of zigzag
And then
up
start
our way through the
zigzagging this way?
trees. Yeah, and then you see that tree break, and that's where we kind of get into the rock part.
oh, okay,
And
so
then you
right,
just
right where this tree breaks right here.
yes,
Okay.
and so you kind of just make your way up that way. And we came across several people. I remember this dad and girl from Washington. It was like her dream to climb.
Hmm.
And the dad took her for her birthday or something, and then she froze. I remember she froze, and everybody, we were down there.
She froze in the ice, or I'm just kidding, dude.
She's just like, I can't move. And the dad
Yeah.
was pissed. He's like, you're gonna get up there right now. You brought me out here. She's like, Dad, I'm sorry. I just don't. I can't.
Oh gosh.
And so we kind of everybody, even the YouTube guy was like, you got this. You're good. Like, don't even worry about it. So finally, we get to this point where we're like, we need a break, and we sit in like this rock nest. It looked like a nest, like
Yeah.
literally it was just, and I'm like, man, I think this is where we're going to have our coffee. I think this is it. Like, we're not going to have it up at the top. And we sit there for a while, catch our breath. And then a mountain goat comes out right behind us. Like, we just hear like, and we look, and there's a mountain goat like literally right behind us. And he's just like looking at us like, what are y'all?
Yeah. What
We're
are
like,
you? What are you doing? here?
Yeah. I'm like, whoa. Right. And so we took a couple pictures of him, and you see it in that TikTok. He kind of just hops around us like nothing and then continues on. We saw 2 or 3 mountain goats. We got like to the first top, like the first break.
Yeah.
We
the
got to
first
that point.
peak.
Yeah. Kind of like the little first peak before you get to like to the main peak. And a thunderstorm rolls in.
Oh yeah. Dude.
Yeah. Yeah. That was
You
great.
guys didn't have ponchos
No.
or any gear or even a backpack.
I had my backpack,
Okay.
but I had
with
coffee.
one bottle of water and coffee. a
Black
coffee
Rifle
set.
coffee got us through the trip, man. Does wonders.
Oh my gosh.
No, so yeah, all I had was my Jet Boil and some Black Rifle coffee,
God.
and this
I'm like, you need
thunderstorm.
minimum 50 liters of water, or sorry, 50 milliliters of water. You need at least some Ace wraps just in case. You need a Sam Splint just in case.
now I
And
know
you
that
need
now.
better, not those shoes.
As soon as I got back, I started looking on hiking boots.
Even just shoes, bro. Like I went to when I did the trip to California. This was 2015, but I took some they're New Balance, but they're trail shoes. So
okay,
the bottoms were still better. They weren't flat like that.
I'm gonna tell you, there was several moments that I sat on my ass and just slid.
Yeah.
Like this is how it goes.
Yep.
And so we get to that point, we're like trying to make the decision: do we continue on to the second like peak,
Right.
or do we turn around and kind of just hightail it out of there? And we're sitting up there, and we see the YouTube guy just kind of like hopping, just making his way, and we look up and just clouds rolling in, and then you just hear the thunder just kicking off, and we're like, that's our sign to let's go. So we start heading down, and we're zigzagging back, and finally at that point we realize the guy tells like, why aren't you following the cairns? We're like, what? He's like, these are for the trail. And we're like, well, thanks, now we know that. So we start following it, we're going down, and somehow we end up off the trail. Yes, I
That's
know.
scary. That's scary.
That's
That's
scary.
just scary in general. Like I'm not saying it from experience. I'm saying it for like that's scary because it happens, and that's how people disappear.
Exactly. So he luckily we had really good cell service on there, and
that's good.
Yeah, and
Oh,
he
you
was,
guys lucked out.
and
then.
he had a like,
little bit.
like we're over here, we need to be here.
Yeah.
And I'm like, so we're like 200 yards off.
Oh my, that's like that's a stretch.
Yeah,
off,
so
bro.
I'm looking.
That's not 10 steps.
No.
off, bro. If you're 200 yards off.
And so then I made the dumb decision. I'm not gonna lie. I probably shouldn't be sitting here today. And I said, well, we're gonna hit the trail down. Like if we keep going, it's gonna cross us. I said, we just go straight down. He's like, no, I'm gonna go that way. And I was like, my pride got the best of me, and I said, well, I'm gonna go that way. And I go straight through like
all the brush. And everything.
yes.
I did that once,
Just for my
never
ego.
again, but I know. Yeah, it's like no, I'm taking a straight line so I don't get lost. I just want to get there. I don't care what's in my way.
He went his way, and he still managed to pass on the trail. Like he was like maybe 200, 300 yards in front by the time I got back on the trail. And then I had to catch up to him and make our way down.
Yeah.
By that time, I ran out of water. And
One of these like things of water.
I had two smart The smart water
bigger-
bottle, the big
bigger
ones. So I had those in my backpack as well. I had already drank
That's
them.
actually not too bad, but you do need to manage your water. It's about managing your water and being hydrated prior to
Yep,
your climb.
I didn't. So it was funny because the way up there, my cousin had the bladder. He went prepared. He
Okay,
knows.
So he had
He
the bladder,
knew.
He had the camelback.
Yeah, he had the bladder plus extra water for him, and then he had like his little setup.
Yeah,
and
depending on it always depends. Like it's really a big difference for me if I want to be taking 50 milliliters or 100 milliliters.
So
on
I was
on a hike.
on the way up. He was like, "Do you want water from my camelback?" And I was like, "Man, hell no! You put your mouth in that nasty whatever." And shit. On the way back down, I was like, "Give me that shit."
Yeah,
I don't care.
You have cotton mouth. You're all dried up, and then Colorado's high as it is as far as elevation.
Yeah.
So you're already dealing with drier air.
Yeah. I remember going down and we hit this little pocket stream, and I one of us was like, I forgot if it was Ray or Reyes that drank from it. It's like, I don't give a shit. I'm like, Giardia, oh well. I'll shit when I get back.
Yeah.
But yeah, so we did that. We finally, I think it took us a total of like 6-7 hours to go up and come back down before
So
we
it was
made
round
the
trip 7 hours.
Roughly
Yes, 6-7 hours. So
I want to say it was close to 7. Yeah, it was like 3 up. We did.
Do you by chance? I mean, do you by chance know what elevation you started at? So I feel like 3 hours up is not going to take you. Maybe you might get close to 13,000 at like a lower elevation, but I'm just wondering. I'm just curious.
He actually has the trail on his phone.
Okay.
So the exact. What do we? I don't remember
where you guys started. Kind of where you started. And
and we made our way up.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, but it was great. That was a great experience there, and that's why that one stood out.
Yeah, for sure. That's dope, man.
Yeah, there was a.
What other road trips have you taken, like in your past, if any? Because you say you weren't, like, you haven't been much of a traveler or consider yourself a traveler, but like, has like family, like anything with a family, like you've gone, like anything?
I mean, with family, we go to Louisiana a lot.
Yeah, you mentioned that even the last time.
Louisiana,
but
Mississippi
nothing
area.
like mountains or anything like that.
No, the last trip that I had taken before that was with one of my buddies, Kevin. We went to Michigan. We drove to, his family and us drove to Michigan to go hunting. We got there the last day of shotgun season, and that was cool. It was December time. It was Christmas time, and that was a cool trip. We went to the small little town, Deckerville, went ice fishing and did a bunch of
pretty cool.
Yeah, that was an experience.
That's pretty dope. Okay, yeah, I'm just curious if there's
But yeah,
anything else.
prior to that, nothing really, like Lake Tahoe before that, but I was real young for that one.
Lake Tahoe. Oh, dude, I can't wait to go. I want to go back. Just because I've only been once, but it was awesome. Like I got to go kayaking, and then we hit the casinos at night, and it was dope. It was super dope. It was super, and the water's like super clear, and it was like the water's cold too. Like it was probably like, I mean, given our body temperature was 98 degrees, so let's say it's 72 degrees. It's still,
okay.
That motherfucker's so cold. You know, it
yeah.
still feels cold. So I'm assuming it was that temperature because this was like September. This is September 2015 when I went.
Okay.
And to get on the kayaks, we have to push the kayak, and then you get in the kayak, right? So,
yeah.
So I mean, you're in Lake Tahoe for 10 feet, and then you just jump in and you start kayaking, you start paddling. But that's
cool.
That's pretty dope. So yeah, if you ever, that's another place that as far as nature and stuff goes, like that's pretty dope.
Definitely, I definitely want to go back to Lake Tahoe for sure. I mean, Colorado, and then also Lake Tahoe because I went when I was younger and I remember it pretty well. As far as, and yeah, like I would know that would be an experience I would like. Yeah. Some other trips that we're trying to figure out. Well, we're going to Alaska.
Oh, you are?
Yeah.
What part?
It's a cruise that's gonna go in 5 different states.
Okay.
So we're gonna do that. I want to see if I can find try and go fishing up there.
I'll get you connected with my cousin.
Okay.
He's up there.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
All right.
He wants me to go, and if he sees this, I want to go. I just cannot right now.
I'm going.
He is going, and he wants to go fishing.
I don't know the exact towns that it's stopping off at. So yeah, we're gonna fly to. Where are we flying to? Oregon, and then out of Oregon,
Washington.
Washington.
Because you're probably leaving around the Seattle area.
Yes. We're gonna fly into Seattle, and then out of Seattle,
Seattle has the main. Because when I went to Alaska, we flew Dallas from here to Dallas to Seattle. And Seattle, we had to do our 2 different connects in 2 parts of Alaska.
Okay.
To get to our final destination. Dude, I'll never forget that our final runway to get into. So we landed from Seattle, I think, the Ketchikan, and then from Ketchikan we got on a smaller plane to get into Sitka,
Oof.
and you could see. So we landed in Sitka, and we are winter because obviously it's beautiful. Like it's new to me.
Okay.
I'm like 12 years old. Like I'm like
Okay.
relatively young. But I remember being amazed because, and also that was my first time flying ever. I was 12 years old, and so we landed, and me and my dad, he's my co-pilot here on my left, and we raised the window, and I'm looking like, oh, look at the water, blah blah, and like it's literally tarmac, rocks, water. I'm like, oh my god, and then when the plane turns, you just see rock.
Oof.
I'm like, oh my god. Like, and it was because it's a smaller plane, right? So it's a relatively fast. It has to be a fast runway. So you're down the runway, you go, you turn, and it's like, oh my god! Like if this pilot didn't know what he was doing, it'd be a bad day.
Yeah,
it was just going, and then you turn,
Wow.
and I was like, oh wow, like no, yeah, that's a little part that I remember about that.
Okay.
About Alaska, but you'll probably have to add him, and I'll let him know, hey, dude, add Matt so that if by chance
I'm in the area,
he can at least tell you where to go.
Okay.
Or if you happen to be or in the same area or whatever, then hopefully he can be, because he likes to guide too. Like he is the way you like to teach like pistol, like just like range safety and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And pistol, like just I don't know, just firearm knowledge.
Okay.
He's the same way about like going
out there and
going out there and getting stuff done, because he mentioned this was like over winter time, like December time frame, and they had seen 75 of something, and like they shot this many, and he sent me videos, and they're literally jumping from their boat to like a rock like area, and they're getting this wildlife to then take home and cook. And like there's another little video where they're literally passing like a little iceberg. It's not an iceberg to me. I'm like, nothing's little about an iceberg. It's like,
I watched Titanic. Nothing.
Right. It's like, I seen Titanic. I saw it way too young, and I'm kind of scared of ice
I know
rocks.
what it can do.
Yeah. So, anyways, that was that. Oh, that's so funny. So, actually, trip to Colorado. How did fishing go this past weekend? Speaking of fishing and kind of transitioning everything right now.
Fishing.
Because you guys went what? Because you guys started spring break Friday, and then
we
did you guys leave Friday, or you guys left Saturday?
We left Saturday morning. Went out. We went to Aransas Pass, and it was very slow. I'll say that the weather was crazy.
It was also cold.
It was very cold.
So that probably didn't help. And
it wasn't ideal
for how was the water?
It was choppy. It was
super
yeah,
choppy.
that wind. So we tried kayaking on a calmer day, and we were like just being blown around.
I was like, you tried kayaking on a choppy oh my god.
So it was a calmer day. The wind was still kicking. I know that, and the chop was very light. We managed to get into like a little inlet, and even in there, we were just getting pushed around.
Yeah.
My kayaks are pretty light, and we just we weren't even able to be stable. So we waited a couple spots, but I mean the area that we were in, we were very limited. So wasn't the best,
the ideal trip or outcome to the trip.
But yeah, but for sure I gotta try to get another trip in before spring break ends.
Okay. That's good. Yeah.
But other than that, I mean, the last couple fishing trips have been pretty good. It's interesting because these last couple fishing trips, I've been actually focused more on the videography and the photography side of it, rather than the actual fishing itself.
What drew you to that? If anything, what drew you to
So my cousin, seeing what my cousin has done. My cousin Ray, he was actually one of the media employees, I guess, for UTRGV, and so he did a lot of the photography for them, and a lot of the pictures that you'll see in the student services area, the academic services area. He took a lot of those, some of the billboards that they posted for that. He's done those. So just seeing what he's capable of doing, I just kind of asked him hey, can you teach me how the ins and out of it? And so he's shown me color grading. He's shown me the apps to use, how to take your photo and turn it into something that looks very, very appealing.
Yeah.
And then this last couple of times we just played around with the videography side of it. So the bailing videos that I've posted, we did that, and that kind of took us several days to accumulate and put it all together. And when we did that, I was kind of like, man, this is cool. Like I like this.
Yeah, no, there's definitely. I mean, it seems like you have the same like little. There's a spark there. Like I know I find interest in it. That it's like especially once you dial in kind of the editing, it's just something cool about it. So
yeah. So that happened, and I know that we made. So he took his setup that he had. Like it's a, I don't know how much he spent on it. I just know the lens alone is like $900 and like the all that. So he took that setup out there one day, and I remember he's like, I'm not gonna fish that much. He goes, I'm just gonna record, and I want to see what we can do. And I said, all right, sure, so like that's cool. So we got like the early morning sunrise, and we got the water, and we got everything. We just happened to come up on a little flounder spot that day, and we pulled, I believe it was like 9 flounder. And so he was able to capture like the hook sets, the fish splashing in the water, and things like that. And afterwards, whatever I shoot, whether I shoot it with my phone or I shoot it with the camera that I take now, we exchange everything. Like he's like, what did you record? What did I record? Swap, and we have both. And then he'll make his own, and I'll make my own.
Oh, okay.
And so that day he just happened to get some like awesome footage. Yes. And it was funny because I posted it when I posted it on TikTok. There's this influencer, or I don't know if he's got a pretty good following now. He's called Fish Boss.
Okay.
He actually messaged like, man, like those shots were.
Oh, nice. That's dope.
Yeah, he was like, those are some crispy shots, and I was like, dang, like thanks.
Yeah, that's dope.
Yeah,
that's
so we got to do the slow mo stuff. So we took a video of a boat going out, and we slowed him down with the sun rising, and then we got, like I said, I put some hook sets in there, and we got the fish in the water, and it was just, and when it came out, I was like, dang, this is cool.
So I'm glad you tied in like fishing and how you're kind of focusing on more the creative aspect of going out to fishing, but capturing this content.
Mm-hmm.
Why Beloved Adventures? So
the Beloved Adventures, it ties back to my uncle that passed away.
Okay.
So him, it's funny because he and my grandpa ran this like a lawn service business that once my grandpa retired, that's kind of what kept them, a steady income for them. And I remember he would always, I would always work for them. So we'd be cutting yards and everything and doing all that stuff. And I always told him like, it's the new generations in town. Like we're going to get stuff done today. And he's like, he'd always say like, my beloved nephew, like I need to show you the ropes. I need to show you how it's done. And I remember, because if you know anything about, at least for me, or like our experiences with bailing and cutting and all that, Murphy's Law is going to kick in every time.
We were talking about that yesterday too.
Yeah, because if shit can go wrong, it's going to go wrong. And something breaks, shear bolts break.
Yeah, it's like our podcast episode yesterday with my buddy Matt Rodriguez. It's like,
yeah.
Everything just went after there.
So we would always just exchange, go back and forth. And I remember like, I also have the nickname Manos de Fuego for a reason. I just break shit. I'm very what people call tosco. Okay, so I'm not very gentle with things. I say like my preferred profession would be like a tester to see the durability of things.
The durability test.
Yeah, if you
Quality assurance,
if it can last through a week with me, then okay, it's good. And so no matter how pissed off I know he would get, because like I said, I would break a lot of stuff. He would always refer, and he, not just me, but he referred to everybody as like my beloved nephew, my beloved sister, my beloved this.
Okay.
And that was just his phrase. That and badass was his phrase. Like, that is badass, beloved nephew. Yeah. And so
I think I remember that phrase, hearing that phrase before.
Yeah. And even when I spoke at his funeral, that came up. It was like just the way he was. So that was his home. That was his everything, really. Like the way he spoke and the way he loved that ranch. And so I tied it into the ranch. We named it My Beloved Ranch. And then when we went on that trip to Colorado, I was kind of like, I want to make a page, and I want it to be the stuff that we do, because it's mostly fishing, because that's what I mostly do right now. I'm mostly just fishing. But if I go on a trip, like another Colorado trip, I'm going to put that in. If I go, hunting, then we're going to see hunting. We want to kind of get into a couple of the like cooking side of it, because we do go and make some pretty interesting things.
Well, you also have a heavy limit of what you can cook and not cook.
I really, yeah. And so when I get the chance to go outside that limit, it's really when like we kick off on things. And so, but everything is always usually we always say it like, man, it's never a dull day. We're always having some type of adventure. So I go, you know what, like beloved adventures. This is something that happens. So that's how the name came about, and it's like on a couple other things. Like I have a cousin that started a baking business, and it's belovedly sweet and stuff like that. So it's just our way of kind of remembering and honoring him to keep him, around. And there's my profile. Yeah. So that one right there that the cursor's on is the one that actually that guy said like crispy shots.
This one?
Yes. So like things like that. When I saw that, we were capable of getting something that clean like that. Which I mean, by no means is that like professional grade, but
But the timing is good, and obviously I don't have the music on, so we don't get cut off of YouTube.
Yeah.
But like the timing is good because I mean I've seen them like man, dude, like I wish I would like to see more content from you guys, right?
Mhm.
However, me and you have had this conversation before where it's like, but it's hard to get like the to get the amount of shots to make sure the quality's constantly like this.
yes,
Where
like
it's constantly like
so like if you go to the next one right after this one, which I because I pinned it. No,
one?
up. That one was like several different trips compiled into.
Gotcha.
And like my cousin shot these. He shot all these close-ups. That one shot right there took forever to just size it. I remember I wanted to throw in a
That's
couple
good,
just
that's a good shot right there.
yeah, that one. And then like I said, that was from the previous trip from the first video.
Gotcha.
That's from that same trip. And then that was also in that same day. And then we got that one.
That's a good.
That's
shot.
yeah.
That's a good shot. Yeah. When I saw these compiled, and then you told me about your cousin that kind of helps you or not kind of, he's been the one like kind of.
Oh yeah, for sure. He's the
helping you through like the process of generating content to then create.
and you
short
can
video
tell
like
if
that.
you watch him, you can tell which ones he's shot and which ones I've shot.
But the ability to kind of mesh them together is pretty good, dude. Like I'm
Yes.
telling you, like I feel like I'm on the same boat, and it's led to this podcast. But like as far as content creating, especially when I was doing vlogs and like the amount of time it took to like have 8 hours of content and drop
Mhm.
it down to 9 minutes or 10, 8 minutes,
Yeah.
sub 10 minutes if you could. I got you.
But
Yeah.
those were the two main ones that he shot mostly, and then the rest is mostly stuff that we kind of put together.
Yeah.
Which at first it was very interesting when we started it out. When we started, well, at least when I started posting, he has his TikTok, and he wasn't posting as much before. I remember he had like 2 videos, and then once we started kind of doing this, I noticed he's also increased. That's with the drone footage. But I remember at first, like I was afraid to take anything that he shot, because
What do you mean?
just because his quality was so much better than mine, because of obviously the setup that he was using was
Yeah.
was a lot better.
Right.
He knew how to adjust and work things and do things, and so I remember he would send me stuff and I wouldn't want to use it because I'd be like this is yours. And we had the conversation one day, and I told him, I said, I don't like using the stuff you shoot. He's like, well, why? What's wrong with it? And I was kind of like, no, it's because you shot it. He's like, dude, I don't care. Like, we're doing it. Why not?
Yeah.
And so after that, I was like, all right, cool. And so I've sent him some stuff. There's one that I really like that I shot with the drone on his.
On his profile or what?
Yeah, on his
okay.
on his profile. And so he used that. So I was kind of like, okay, cool. Like, it is somewhat of an equal. So I realized like I'm gonna get some good shots. He's gonna get some good shots. Like these last couple of days, we've focused on photography, and the post that I did yesterday on Instagram, was it yesterday or the day before? Was some of the shots that I took that he showed me like how to do. That one's DM2107. No shame in that plug if anybody wants to. Right there. Second one. No, yeah, second one. That one. Yeah. So that one was like just the photography side of it, where I took some pictures around the ranch and just kind of But yeah, so that's like a new hobby picking up. Not sure where I want to go with that.
Yeah.
But enjoying doing it at the moment.
Those are good pictures. Oh, where's that? Where's that?
That's there.
Really? You guys have an old piano?
So my grandma and grandpa used to clean up foreclosed homes,
Yeah.
and they came across 2 pianos, and that was one of them. And
Oh,
it just we moved it. It actually fell off of my truck, or fell off of the trailer there. It was already all beat up.
Yeah.
But it sat there, and we picked it up, and like it just kind of fit in that picture. My cousin took that one. That's the only picture my cousin took of
That's
those.
a good wide lens too. I can tell by the background that you're using a fairly wide lens.
But yeah, so those. So I'm just figuring it out right now.
Yeah.
But I would like to shoot like there's the lady that I showed you today. She does all that wildlife or fishing photography.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, she shoots a lot for a company, or not a company, but these guys that fish a lot down here, Truchador, and her stuff. I'm like, man, dude, to get to that level, like, that's cool.
Yeah, man, and all this, and especially this segment right here, as far as content creating, it's like I get amped and then I have to calm down because, like, again, I have to retract my brain.
You gotta,
I still have a lot of medicine and like stuff that I need to do before I can, do these things. Speaking of medicine, though, I want we can transition a little bit.
Okay.
Here. So I want to go over a couple of things. So this one we talked about the last time. It was you, Frank.
Oh, okay.
Let me see. I'm trying to gauge this. So okay. So I'm making sure the angle's right, and then obviously people can see the. So I'll play it. I don't think they'll be able to hear like quite that well, which is fine because it's whatever. But we had talked about this, and we had talked about it, but I didn't have video. I didn't have all this stuff going on. So
yeah.
I'm gonna play it, and then we can laugh about it a little bit, and then just talk about how terrible. If you've seen this one, then okay, you've seen it. But this came up last time when Frank and Matt were on, and this is let's just play it.
Bring your hand underneath the trigger guard and roll your palms together. So both your hands are going to sit on the left-hand side of the pistol. You're going to.
And this poor guy, like, just listening and like following like every like direction and like, everything that
in a sense, blind leading the blind.
You're gonna push with your right and pull with your left. Focus on that front sight tip. Now, if you want on this,
bro. Hold on, guys. I'm trying. Let me see if I can slow this down.
Yeah, playback speed.
Even if I do it like one, let me see.
Now, if you want on this 44 Magnum.
No,
right there, actually.
I know it's coming up, but there's a part where he points at the ground.
Front sight tip.
Right there. Like, bro, like the anxiety, my amygdala is firing. Like,
if I was in that situation, I think I would have told him like, hey man, like your finger, move it. Don't even, better yet, like just put the gun down or give me the gun back if it's his.
Yeah.
I don't know the full context as far as that.
And that's the thing. Like, there's some context that like.
But these guys, like, you can tell they're maybe like this is like one of their first time shooting.
Yeah.
So obviously they're not gonna say anything. But yeah, like right there when you're playing it, literally like I clenched my feet, like kind of like oh, like man.
I was like, oh, it's about to happen.
It was gonna happen.
I was like, where did my feed go? All right, so let's finish this video.
Okay.
That's my fault. I need to figure out this system for my camera. There we go. We're back.
Okay.
So I'm like, where my guy? I'm like, I knew I left it here, but I'm like, why did it go away? Okay, so we're back.
I saw it kind of go out. I was
shoot. Okay, so let's finish this video real quick.
Okay.
Let me put it back in. I'll put it into roll time, and then we'll slow down again. Just because I guess we can create again a strong point about like how like stern gun safety is. What's it?
Battery change.
I just changed the battery pack. Okay, well.
Now, if you want on this 44 Magnum, you can shoot it single action.
Boom.
Nice light trigger pull.
Did you mean to do that?
Yeah.
I'm gonna slow it down one more time.
You can shoot it single action. Oh.
Did you mean to do that?
If you want on this 44 Magnum, you can shoot it single action. It's a nice light trigger pull.
Did you mean to do that?
Yeah.
There he is shaking up.
Did you mean to do that? Yeah, I did. Of course I did. Why? I'm the instructor.
And I'm gonna say he's very, very lucky in that moment, because, I mean, just from the recoil impulse, it could be enough to set his finger another round. Which you've like I've seen in some cases, where like somebody pulls the trigger, and the recoil is so much that it causes them to pull it again, so they'll get like a little 2-shot there, and so that I'm like, oh my goodness. But yeah, that's a cringe video right there.
Hold on, let's see what this is. How to accidentally discharge your pistol properly? How do you accidentally discharge your pistol properly? Okay, now we gotta watch.
Unless he's talking about like a check, and even though you think.
Wow! Good and unload.
That's what that.
Show clear. I got it.
Yeah.
If clear, slide forward, number down, and holster. Range is safe. I think I might have had the hammer pull. In the trigger, we have it on video, which is awesome too. So.
Okay.
Okay. So at least. So the instructor's back here then. So this is the instructor teaching. Okay. So
yeah.
At least it's not okay.
It's not what I thought at first. Then.
Right. I'm like, oh my god.
Like I thought he racked it back with his finger on the trigger.
Yeah.
And that force caused it to fire. But I mean, that if they're saying it's not, I can't really tell. In that moment.
It's kind of too dark too.
Yeah. So right there where it goes.
But...
Well, even where that girl's at, it's kind of boom. So right there. Yeah, he has it. I mean, I can kind of see his finger on top, but I'm not too sure.
Show clear. I got it. If clear, slide forward, number down, and holster. Range is safe. I think I might have had the hammer pull.
That's still
yeah,
scary.
That was not your finger in the trigger. We have it on video, which is awesome too. So, I gotta DQ you though. I'm sorry. I'm sorry about that, man. All right.
I guess they're going through
I mean, that's just.
I guess it's like no. It says. I guess it was like a licensing course. Like they're probably going through a course. He's like, oh, I got to DQ you, so they're probably trying to test out for their license or whatever.
Oh, okay.
I'm guessing. I don't know.
Yeah,
I don't have any. It just happened to pop up on the next video. I'm like, how do you accidentally discharge your pistol properly? Like there's almost like it's an oxymoron. It's a contradiction. Like it doesn't make sense. I'm gonna get out of this for now.
I guess it's just the fact that he has it pointed in a safe place when it fired.
At least it happened in a safe direction. We don't have to necessarily go into this, but I just brought this up because I was trying to remember because I learned the conditions, but I haven't had to use the conditions. So like now that I have my pistol right now, it's like I need to like just be my. I'm right now. I'm pretty much always in condition 4, which no magazine, no round in the chamber. But I was just going over it mentally. Where I was like, oh, I happen to have a tap up. There's your stuff. So you guys also talked about this particular gun. I guess it's technically her page. I guess she's the daughter to this guy.
Yes.
Before as we were getting ready to start recording, you said that the dad got his TikTok or got his Instagram.
His Instagram just got banned. Literally, maybe like 3 days ago. So he started up a new page.
Do you know why it got banned?
It shows too many guns and stuff.
Okay, is it just the gun stuff?
Yeah, it's mostly the gun stuff and the content he puts out. Which most of the content he puts out is like readiness and just
like this one. Like so, I'd like to go through this one real quick, just because it's good from like a gun safety situation, but
Mhm.
like I'd like to bring in some of the medical stuff I've learned. And again, this is all stuff that I've learned in a teaching environment. And that's it. You know, I haven't been in a real situation. I haven't had. I've now seen real situations come into the hospital,
Yeah.
but I've never been out in the field to like actually deal with situation. But I'd like to just kind of go through this
Okay.
and involve first aid, and go from there. So, is there a way to, I'm trying to see if I can rewind this somehow. No, it's not gonna let me. So obviously, this is the daughter. Dad got shot apparently in the abdomen. She got his phone so she can call for help, which is good. This is assuming this is assuming you have fire superiority, which is one thing that I've been taught is that you want to have fire superiority. You want to make sure either your subject is no longer lethal, or in this case, I have to venture to say get him off the X. He just got shot. If he's still talking, obviously I'm not saying she's a little girl, but she's a young girl, smaller than her dad. But they should probably try to get off the X to get to some cover.
Yes.
Potentially.
That would be
so that's one thing.
Best case scenario.
Again, this is just me. Again, this is all opinion as far as like where my mind goes now, based on what I've been taught.
Yeah.
How another thing I want to add on, which I want to talk with you. We can kind of talk about it on here, but there's not much to talk about that's relevant to the podcast.
Okay.
But as far as creating an IFAC that's suitable and like a multi-use one, because what I've seen the IFACs that are, because the one I have for me, I created and made it myself.
Okay.
Because I'm able to cover like in my head, I can cover motor vehicle accidents and potentially like penetrating wounds, including gunshot wounds.
Okay. Which in reality, you're going to be more likely to come across something like that rather than a gunshot wound.
Right. Yeah. Like not 100%, but like 90%. Like
yeah.
There's a heavier chance of seeing a car wreck where it's like, oh shoot. And even then, this is all not legal. Like I'm saying legal as far as like health advice. This is just bringing what I've learned so far dealing with emergency medicine and trauma medicine. Because even then, like, you could deal with, if you help somebody, you then, because you got hands-on patient, now deal with potential ramifications if the patient like ends up dying or like something happens.
They get hurt in the process.
Yeah, you hurt them worse in the process, and it's a whole thing. That's why it's like it's very sketchy. But I have had a nurse where I remember them like not calling him for the day, but like, hey, I'm helping in a motor vehicle crash. I will be there when I get there.
Yeah,
they stopped in lieu, or not in lieu, on the way to said place, and it's like, okay, cool, like, you know, whatever, we went about our situation, it was fine.
But then there's also the obligation standpoint of it.
Yeah.
Which
especially if you're BLS, like if you're BLS certified, which I think teachers have to be.
Yes.
Or
no. So for us, it's coaches.
Or is it what?
For coaches, for sure.
Gotcha.
I know.
Okay, coaches. Okay, which makes sense because you're out with students, and you know, if they're like little boys have a heart attack, it's like, oh my god, you know, VTAC, VTAC only. Anyways, so like learn how to use AED and stuff like that, and I guess this also helps me segment because on Saturday, I mean, you weren't here on Saturday, but Saturday, I was talking with Frank. It was me, Frank, Brian, and Eddie came over. There was a bunch of us. Everybody came over. We had barbecue, and eventually, I don't remember why, but we got into like safety. I think I was just telling a story.
Okay.
And Frankie mentioned like they have a safety man, such and such, but that he's been taught compressions. Like, well, have you been taught BLS? Because like it doesn't make sense to know compressions but not know BLS because if they have a pulse, you shouldn't be doing compressions.
Yeah.
And the thing is, if you don't, it wouldn't be his fault though, because if you didn't know and the person's not responsive, then you still fall into the category of like, well, I'm gonna start doing CPR because he's not responding. When in fact he has a pulse. So it's like what do you do then, right? And I was like, bro, like you need to find out because like in my opinion, if you know CPR, you should know BLS.
Yeah.
Anyways, that all got me like a tangent, and then as I was watching. I was looking through Tactical Trinity because you and Frank brought it up on the last podcast 4 years ago.
You all just brought it up.
Like, it feels like oh, the last podcast, but yeah, the last podcast was 4 years
ago. Yeah, I do remember talking about Tactical Trinity, and I think he was a little bit more into this like I follow Tactical Trinity, but I follow her dad more as far as like watching.
Gotcha. I wish there was a way to reset. Like I want to reset the video, but it's not.
Yeah.
Like there's no like time thing. So there,
So-
she's holding pressure, which is good. Let me just. I want to start from the beginning. Hold on.
Okay.
I want to
Yeah.
reset just because holding. So right there,
'Kay.
apparently
So threat
there's a threat. Dad's like, "Hey, get behind me! Get behind me!"
in the process, boom, gets hit.
Now is showing that he got hit in his abdomen, torso area, which sucks. I've now seen ramifications of getting shot in the abdomen, torso area, and that it sucks for the patient. You know, even just one, all it takes is one, and it could be a 22, and it's still gonna fuck you up. It's
Oh,
crazy.
yeah, I bet.
It's crazy. Like it's gonna mess you up. So there.
Okay,
so
so-
then she's been taught now to grab Dad's pistol, like which he concealed carries.
Yep.
Okay, cool.
Because at this point, you still have the threat.
Yeah, the threat's still there. So
Okay.
she's trained to get his pistol. She's already shot off one round there.
Okay.
To subdue the target, which, in my opinion, like cool. Like you're being taught. Obviously, by this point, it seems like she knows, gun safety, gun control. Like she seems very confident with her
Oh,
weapon,
yeah.
which is great.
Yeah.
You know that, but
But for
I'd
somebody
like
that
to,
hasn't,
debrief, right? For me, I'm way less, I'm way less just knowledgeable on it. It's not that I don't have my algorithm in my head to like keep have firearm safety, but just the given fact that she's probably like I'm guessing she's under 18. I'm guessing she's like
at this point, yes.
So let's just say
now I think she's a lot
probably
older.
Okay,
Oh
so
yeah.
Let's just say for the sake she's like 14 here. Let's just
Okay. Yeah.
just because I literally don't fucking know, and it doesn't matter. She's confident with a weapon. Her dad's there. Obviously he got shot. She subdues the subject.
We're gonna assume threat gets
So
eliminated.
it was like
there.
4 shots, 5 shots she gets off. It's like
Mhm.
4 or 5 that she gets off.
Yeah.
She checks her surroundings to verify there's no threat around her. Assesses that she has now subdued the subject.
Mhm.
Puts the pistol back in Dad's holster. I mean, this is like legal stuff that I don't know. Like, do you think putting pistol back into holster is the right thing to do?
In this case,
Because I don't know the law. I mean, obviously it depends what state they're in. I know laws are probably different in different places.
yeah. Okay. Well,
But-
so first
but
off,
do you think if you could bring your opinion?
okay. So in
For
my
now.
opinion of the situation, I do think it would be a wiser decision to put it back in the holster,
Okay.
only because now she's focusing on her dad. She's focusing on calling, getting things. You don't want to leave a firearm kind
Yeah.
of just laying
Just
around.
yeah. Okay. Which is right. 'Cause this is me. Like, I'm literally debriefing this kind of in real time as well.
Yeah.
And I'm just genuinely curious.
Yeah.
So there, she then. She
actually
grabs
takes the holster out.
So she takes
Puts
the
it there.
holster, puts it to the side. So I guess pistol's reholstered. Now
Okay.
gets phone from Dad.
Well, makes sense.
Contacts the hopefully the authorities. Like, hey, my dad's been shot. Can we need help? And hopefully, it's hard to think because man, to subdue the subject prior to attending to your dad, which is the right thing to do.
Yeah.
Fire superiority. You need to make sure that your situation is handled. Call the authorities, hopefully, and then it be a 5-second call like that. Like, hey, I just need you to get here.
Yeah.
We're at the corner of the 10th and
Yeah.
Pecan.
Being able to know your
whatever.
surroundings, know where you're
Yeah.
at, get that call out there, and get them, in the process of getting there.
And then she proceeds here again. So we covered this just to finish the video. So here she proceeds to hold pressure,
Mhm.
which is fine. But there was again. I wish I could rewind because there's a barrel. There is a blue barrel, which they could use for sake of simulation. They could have used that as cover to
Okay.
get him off the X. In my opinion, again, it's based on what I've been taught, which people can look up March algorithm.
Yeah.
It's the March algorithm.
Well, I mean, just in
It's
a
a
lot
certain
of
situation. It's for a certain type of scenario, obviously. But in my head, it's like, well, you're on the X. Like, there's still, is this open ground? Obviously, we can go into a bunch of variables that
Yeah.
just changes the whole
everything.
thing,
Yeah.
but it's like, in my opinion, it's like get him off the X, get him into some cover, get yourself into some cover, to protect yourself until the
Yeah.
authorities show up.
So I mean, I think in this situation, it's like a one-on-one. Like you only have that one
Yeah.
target. But yeah, if there is somebody else, you do want to get them out of there, and obviously you don't want to still be in that kill zone.
And then hopefully the authorities show up. And that's
Mhm.
that. But yeah, as far as IFAC, I mean, I didn't have much to say about IFACs, but just like seeing that, it's like, oh, like that's why I carry abdominal bandage. You know, I carry abdominal. I carried 2 abdominal bandages.
Okay.
I carry 2 tourniquets. I carry some other like gauze and like tape and like SAM splints and stuff like that. But it's all in my way of thinking. It's all basic stuff to help stabilize as best as possible.
Do
and
you
even
carry?
then, like, and even then, if you see where he got shot, it's like up here, like left upper quadrant of his abdomen. Like your heart's right there, and an adult heart is huge. Like you know how they always say, oh, it's about like the side of your fist. If you put your fist to, okay, let me go back to our main screen.
I
So if you
mean,
put like how big
so
how big
it's
your
like
fist is, and like it's basically like the palm of your hand.
covers a good
That
section.
covers a good section of like just like, oh my god, and it's scary because like for me, like even watching that, the fact that they're running this scenario is good for the sake of like just having some type of awareness. You know, you talked about it a lot in the last podcast. We talked about a little bit here where it's like, you know, that the family, the uncle's friend, where it's like, hey bro, I don't know you, and now I know who you are, but I didn't know you. It's like this could have taken a turn for like the absolute worst.
Exactly. Yeah.
But having that situation awareness and bringing it to like drilling. It's like I'm supportive, but it just gives me anxiety, the fact that like, because it happens.
Well, I mean, that wasn't the only situation I've ever been in. I don't know if I talked about it on the last one. Because it was 4 years ago, that's why I don't remember. But there was an incident where I went to go put gas, and
yes, you told that story. You can tell it again. Tell it again because it's a good one.
Okay,
it's a good one.
So yeah,
it's relevant to like what we're talking about right now.
So I went to go put gas in my truck, and sitting there, I didn't realize everything until I reassessed the situation and kind of went back over things. But I'm pumping gas anyways. Finished pumping my gas, close the cap, everything, get it back in my truck, and while I'm in the process of getting in my truck, and it's a bad habit. I have this habit, and I don't think that it's something that I need to work on, and I think it's something that just in general should not be something that we practice. As soon as I got in my truck, I picked up my phone and I looked at my phone, but just by luck, out of the corner of my eye, I kind of caught a red, like a little flash of red, and it caught my attention to look into my side view mirror, and I see a guy walking up. Real big baggy shirt, real big baggy pants, brand new gas tank. And I bring that up because that's something that it kind of took me like, it made me think a little bit. So I locked my door as he walks up, and he asked me if I could pump gas for him. And my initial thought is like, oh, okay, well, I'm not going to get out of my truck. I don't want to get out of my truck because I'm leaving, but I have some money there. I have like a couple dollars in change. I told him, well, I got that. I can give that to you, and you can, get whatever gas you need. And his response to that was, no, you can get out and you can pump the gas. And at that moment, I was already like, okay, no, like, no, that doesn't sit right with me. And I was like, if you really needed help, you could go ahead and just take the money, and you can go and do whatever. And he kind of got mad at it, and he got aggressive. And at this point, he tells me like to get out of the truck. And so at that point, I have my gun on me, and I have my gun in the right side, and I kind of have my hand on it, and he's within, maybe 3 feet of me for sure, because it's me, my door. He's this truck that I was in just happened to be a lifted truck, so he's looking up at me, which was good for in my case because he would have had
even in that small, but you still have the high ground.
I have a high ground over him. If he was trying to do anything, he's gonna have to reach up.
Yeah.
And I told myself in my mind, so I got the gun and I had it with me, and I told myself, if this guy leans forward, like, you're gonna have to do what you have to do. If he's trying to grab me or do anything, then I'm gonna have to, eliminate the threat or whatever I have to do. And I guess I told him flat out, I'm not getting out of my truck. If you don't want the money, don't take the money, but I'm leaving. Like, I'm going to get out of here. And I kind of cranked my truck. And at that moment, he's like, well, all right. So I had my window pretty high. And at that point, I was able to like slip a little bit out. He took it, and then he kind of walked off. He didn't even go to the store. He kind of walked off and just left. And so when I looked at that, I was like, okay. So I looked around, made sure he was completely gone. I actually drove out. I left. I put my gun away, left. I parked off because I was kind of like, I was on edge there.
Yeah, you're a little adrenaline.
My-
rush,
yeah,
a
my
little
adrenaline
fight or
got
flight,
going
like,
there,
hey,
yeah.
like this could have been it could have potentially again, it could have
Yeah.
been a potentially serious situation.
So after reassessing the whole situation, I kind of looked back and I remember there was 3 different cars there at the gas pump. He was still in that corner because I kind of remember seeing somebody stand there, the corner of the Stripes or the corner store, and he waited until all 3 cars left before he came to ask me for money for gas. And I was like, you know what, that doesn't sit right with me either, because if you really needed that money, you got 4 options
Yeah, you
now.
ask everybody.
Yeah, so
even if all of them gave you $1 or $2, that's
Yeah.
five to $10 bucks. that you
exactly,
get
you increase your chances. So I mean, I'm pretty sure the whole objective for him was not to just get gas money. Like I said, he was wearing extremely baggy clothes, so I don't know if he had anything with
on.
him.
If he was carrying,
Yeah, if
something
he was
had
carrying
some
anything.
other weapon with him too.
Exactly. And so then just how close he was to my truck and close to me, and the tone that he was using was very aggressive. So I was kind of like, you know what, like another situation that I didn't just go popping off, go and like, hey, let's do this. And, you know,
Oh man, that's so scary.
yeah, so like, and I think that came from my ISS days as far as de-escalation, because you get a lot of heated kids in there that go off, and they go off. And so from there, I've just learned don't try to, you know, build up a situation, because you got some people that, oh my gosh, a person cuts me off on the highway, I'm gonna go popping off rounds at
Hey,
you.
that's been happening.
Exactly.
Isn't that, what is it? Is UFC fighter that's there's like a UFC here. Keep finish. I guess just finish the story. And I'll see if I can find it.
Yeah. So I went in my truck. I parked a couple blocks. I left, and then I got out of my truck. And I mean, whether people would think that that's like paranoia or anything, I just made sure like they didn't like attach anything on my truck. I looked under the wheel wells, just looked around, made sure everything was good, and then, you know, called my wife, kind of told her what happened, that I was on my way home, and went about it. And so yeah, but so 2 situations, just, you know, as far as the lessons that I would say that I kind of took away from those 2 incidents is just like, one, the de-escalation. Don't go escalating any situation, making it worse, and kind of be aware of everything that's kind of going on, and noticing those little details. Because it wasn't until after that I realized, like, man, this guy, his motive was not probably the best motive because of that. But yeah, so that was that whole situation, and it kind of ties into what we're learning as far as with Tactical Trinity, and now I believe it's called Dynamic Solutions or something like that. The dad's page, talking about Cain Velasquez, or no.
I think. Oh man.
So that was a case where I believe.
Well,
So,
yeah, I said something about that's what I'm saying. I don't think it was this case.
yeah,
man.
a family member molested his daughter, and
Yeah.
he went and tried to kill him. Which, I mean, I don't blame him on that one.
No, that's the thing. Like, no, because that's what I'm saying. I don't think it was this one. I don't think it was this
Oh.
one.
I did see one. It wasn't a UFC fighter, but there was one where 2 guys, one cuts off the other guy, and
I saw that video.
and he has his gun, and the guy tries passing him again, and he just starts throwing rounds into the car, just, you know, goes off. And it's like, man, people, that's another reason you don't want to escalate a situation, because I don't feel like getting shot over a parking space or just because some guy cut you off. And I mean, you're fine. If you're fine, you're fine. But if you crash, obviously that's a different story. But yeah, that first one.
I'm not gonna play any audio. We can kind of talk through it.
Mhm.
Just I have seen the video as well. So so the background is the fact. So this guy that's what you're gonna see here in a second, gets cut off by another person,
Mhm.
and he just busts out his pistol and just starts shooting through the window into like open
Through his car,
yeah, through his own car. It's like, bro, how pissed off like do you actually have to be?
Yep. And that's why I'm saying, like,
And this one came out in the January 28th of this year, so this
Yeah.
is new. Just because it's local news, I don't want to put the audio because I don't want to screw it up. Hurry up, freaking ad.
gotta love YouTube. Boom, 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 boom.
So yeah, he's literally just and like no control, like trying to control his car and
Like,
shoot. Like
exactly.
it's like, bro, like what are you doing? Look. He emptied his magazine.
He emptied the whole entire. That's crazy. And that's a real big reason why. I mean, growing up, I got into multiple fights growing up, and I used to get very heated very quickly. And now I'm just like, man, like, You just gotta watch out.
Yeah.
I don't like to flip out over
and it's not
things.
even the first video. So there's a story of a jiu-jitsu fighter. This was because I heard it on Tim Ferriss, and forgive me for not having all like the details, but the story is what I remember because so this jiu-jitsu and crazy that this was a jiu-jitsu, like he competed, like all this stuff, right? Still had road rage, which makes sense. He's human. Obviously, he's human.
Oh yeah,
right. So we can acknowledge that he's human, but he was. I guess I don't remember the full, but they were definitely in a car, and he was in his car. I don't know if he got cut up by the other person, or if the person like was like made him like tailgate him. I don't remember exactly what happened. The details. So the jiu-jitsu player gets out of his car, goes up to like go yell at this car from him, and he gets shot and dies. And I was like, and that was the first for me. That was a first instance of like, oh, you don't know what that other person has in their car.
Exactly.
Like, he obviously got shot and died like from having road rage because of whatever happened in the whatever incident happened. But after that moment, there was definitely some intuition that kind of kicked in with just the matter of like you never know what that person next to you in front of you, like as far as vehicle wise, you don't know if they're what they have or what they're carrying or whatever, or who they're affiliated with. That maybe they're on a mission to do whatever things they're about to do.
Definitely.
And now you're gonna be stuck in the middle, kind of. I mean, without asking to be.
Yeah, that brings it like to a story that dang, like I have. We're driving down the road one day, and we're kind of just like jamming out, me and two of my friends, and we had just got back from we not got back, but we were hunting, and I remember we just loaded the back with like we had 3 shotguns. I usually have a pistol on me, so we had like 3 shotguns, 2 or 3 pistols, and then I had an AR. Everything's pretty much put away, but I did have one kind of shotgun just laying there. And we're jamming out, whatever. One of my friends kind of like looks out the window and he's like, oh, whoa, like just with the music, whatever. Okay. And a car, I guess, saw him, didn't like it. Yeah, so I think he was like he did that. Maybe I saw him. Yeah. So I saw him, and he kind of did the peace sign thing, whatever. And I mean, whatever. We pull up to the next light. That guy in the car gets out of his car, walks straight up to the window, knocks on it, and is like, do we have a problem here? Like, do you have something, like whatever? And I'm kind of like, man, dude, like you thinking about what's sitting in my lap, thinking about what's right there on the floor.
Of a few
that you guys have there. Exactly. So I'm like you don't know who like somebody that's aggressive, somebody that doesn't care, has no regard for life, would just like, oh really, what? Boom. And you're done. That's like it.
That made me think, especially because you brought up the Soldiers of Benghazi, the 13 Hours movie yesterday. But it made me think of like that opening scene when Jack, they're Rome and Jack are in the truck trying to get back to like their base, and like they had that incident with like the people, whatever, and they're like, you're ready to go here right now, like yeah, and like those guys are like, oh, get out of here before it's too late. Rightfully so. Like I mean, that's a whole other
that's a whole topic in itself.
Just the concept of like what happened there is like, once they pulled out the guns, like, oh, you're not the only one with the gun.
Exactly.
You're not the only ones here with guns and stuff like that.
And so, like, kind of going through several experiences like that, it's kind of like mellowed me out in a way over time, because I'm like, man, like there are a lot of people that just don't have that regard for life, or they don't care. And like you, and it's like the line that you said, like, I'm ready to go here right now. And there's some people that over a traffic incident, they're willing to go right there right now.
It's not that deep, bro. Like, I promise it's not that deep. We're good.
Exactly. Like,
and it's not even that I'm being a coward that you might think.
And that's
like, no, bro, we're literally good. Like,
that's the part of it that I don't like, is that like the egotistical side of it is like, well, I'm a man, I'm gonna stick up for myself.
And machismo.
Yeah, and it's like, bro, you're gonna die for that. I mean, but I'm not gonna say like if it comes down to a life or death situation, I'm not going to do whatever. But there's certain incidences that don't need to be pushed that far. Yeah. But yeah, so I guess just talking about that and where that kind of led to was crazy. Oh, for sure. I think just watching videos like that, you could do a whole podcast on just that.
Yeah,
like,
we could. I would have to filter, like, make sure there's no like copyright like videos.
Yeah,
but then we can get like just some basic ones, because that's scary, bro.
The
whole thing, whether it's gun safety, like the girl, taking care of her dad, to then a guy losing his freaking mind because he got cut off on the highway,
emptying a whole mag.
Imagine I mean, emptying a magazine into the highway, bro.
Exactly.
Like just shooting into the abyss, bro. And like how far do pistols like? What's the range? Like, is it 2,000 yards, 2,000, or is it feet?
I mean, well,
like what would you say? Guess like let's say it was a 40 or like I don't maybe it's a 45. I don't know.
I
Maybe not.
couldn't tell. I mean, maybe
Yeah,
maybe a
you
9,
can't really
maybe.
tell. It could be any. I mean, really any.
But I mean, it's definitely going to push
up.
through that glass. It's going to continue going. It may tumble. It may kind of like there's ricochets and stuff like that.
Dude, like,
So as soon as it hits things, it's kind of like unknown where that thing's going to go.
Yeah.
Your windshield plays into that, and like I said, it's just every one of those rounds is basically going off on its own trajectory, and that in itself, it's like you're driving and just a straight round clicks through your car, like crazy.
We can start slowing down for today's episode, but
That
it's just because like you feel it, I feel it, we agree. This is not even a biased thing. It's like no, it's a serious thing. When it comes to
It's almost common sense in a lot of cases.
Yeah.
I mean, so look, I every time I see people with firearms, and I mean, I'm gonna say it right now, I'm not an instructor. I'm just some guy that likes firearms a lot. I shoot quite a bit. I'm not gonna say I shoot more than the average person because a lot of the people that I follow shoot like 10 times more than me.
I was gonna say a bunch around. Like,
yeah, right now.
Did you see Tim Kennedy's post? Like,
oh my god!
Many, like him and his family, like has
yes,
rounds and
buckets and bucket. I'm like,
buckets.
man. And then the Crispy posted. He had like a table full of. And I'm like, man, I need to get on that level. But like I always see that there's two sides of the spectrum as far as people with firearms, and there's the people that are like not comfortable with it, and that kind of hinders them because they're so scared of the firearm. They're not really willing to, like, you got to kind of be comfortable with it. Yep. You have to. If you fear it, it makes it a lot harder for you to grasp a lot of things. And then there's the people that are too comfortable with it, and they just like, well, it's not loaded and it's not this, and well, don't worry about it. It's not gonna happen, and it doesn't happen until it does. And now you got a dude with a hole in his foot or hole in his hand.
I got to see that once.
See, and it's like, man,
last year I got to see that. Yeah, right through his hand. And there was no like foul play. Like it was
just self-inflicted, negligent discharge into your.
Yeah. And I mean, you can say it was an accidental discharge, but I mean, there can't be such thing as an accident. It's an ND, not an AD. Sorry, bro. Like, it's not that you weren't trying. It's not that you weren't being safe, but like
most it's due to negligence.
It's still negligent.
Yeah.
You know, whatever you did wrong that one time, it caused you to do. And I'll give you the scenario offline because just because it was like kind of recent-ish.
Oh, okay.
Not like super recent, like. But recent enough where it's like I'd rather not just tell the details over the phone.
Yeah.
Or over this.
Over there.
Just because again, like I was just the matter of fact that's what happened is like, dude, that's an ND, bro.
Yeah.
That's not an AD.
For sure. I mean, being at the range too, like starting out in different ranges, I started out in indoor range, and you see that, like you see the negligence of it. And I remember I got flagged by like multiple people, and that's why when I kind of made the change as soon as we had an outdoor or the opportunity for an outdoor range where you get your own bay and everything, I was like, I'm going because
that's it.
There's some people that just don't have. I'm gonna say like people just don't have common sense in some cases.
They don't have that upper consciousness of like, hey, you can kill somebody with this right now with one.
Once that one round goes off and you can't take that round back, and that's pretty much it. Yeah, so
and now you're getting tried for negligent homicide, or whatever. I don't know what the actual charge would be if you shot somebody on accident, but it's still negligent. Still
involuntary manslaughter. If it's an accident.
I don't know what level. Cause I know there's like manslaughter's a level, and like there's like different levels of like different types of crimes and whatnot. So that's out of my scope of practice. I don't know, but nonetheless, it's still that's all it takes. Just one.
For sure. And and it's even happened with like, what was it? I wasn't in it, but I kind of like stood around and asked if I could watch a class, and even then the instructor, I don't remember the name. I'm not going to say the name of any company or anything, but even then, even the instructor, I was kind of like, man, dude, yeah, you're really not well trained, and that's because his credentials were, I mean, he went off and like I was a Marine and I was in law enforcement. And I did this and I did that, and I'm like, well, then you shouldn't be doing some of the things that you're doing, which he flagged. I remember he flagged one of the people he was And I was like,
So scary,
what?
bro.
Yeah.
So scary.
So that's why when people, I mean, and it's no offense to military or anything like that, but when people use that as a credential, I'm like, okay, you served, you did this, you had your time
cool.
with it,
Yeah.
but there's some people that didn't, and they still have really good firearms handling, and
Yep.
it doesn't mean that you can't be,
Yep.
but right away you can get those red flags like that first video we saw. You can tell that guy no idea what he's talking about.
Yep.
But yeah, so
Trying to make sure there's nothing else that we did that. We did this scenario. I'm not worried about that. We did that. Okay. All right, man. So we had 2 hours, which is good. I mean,
2 hours.
I wasn't scared about being like under 2 hours. Like I knew it would be 2 hours, but I wasn't sure how exactly we were going to hit our point. But we hit all the wickets. We hit everything that I wanted to hit today.
Okay.
I did last podcast was 2018. Why Beloved Adventure, which now we know. Trip to Colorado. We talked about that. Last fish. The choppy waters you had to deal with last fishing trip.
Freezing too.
We can end on a good funny note.
Okay.
So yesterday we were having dinner.
Okay.
We were out at y'all's place, and you were singing over and over again. You're still the one I want.
Oh my gosh!
So
yeah.
you were singing that over and over again, right? And it was funny. It was fine but after a certain point, I'm like, man, like he's singing it over and over. Like in my head, I just like, man, he's singing it over and over again. So as I'm going through TikTok, then I go through Jekka's TikTok, right? And the only video she has up is like a little progression. Like it says like the audio says something along the lines of like, they said we wouldn't make it, but look at us now. And then it goes into you're still the one I want.
Oh, okay.
So I'm here and I started laughing, like, let me make that a note. I'm like, I don't know if I'll even mention it or if we'll talk about it, but I think it'll be a good note to close on. How long? So this will be y'all 7th year being married this year?
This year, so we've been married 6 years. Yeah,
So
it's gonna go on 7 years.
Okay, so just again,
I think what it was.
But I wonder what got you to sing it yesterday. I'm like, oh, because then I thought about maybe you saw the video recently, or so it's stuck in your head and it's only a piece, so that's how.
It was from Instagram for sure. I know I saw a bunch of posts. So when you go, obviously the sounds,
yeah,
and then you click on the sound and you get all the related posts to the sounds.
Yes.
So I watched that. So there's been a trend going around that people posting like their age, like, oh, we're 27, 28, been married this long, this many kids, and then it kicks back to a picture of them like when they first met. And so most of them have been like they met when they were like 17, 18. They're it would be on Instagram.
No. I'm putting up this one for once we close up the show.
Oh, okay, my bad.
Yeah,
I thought you were gonna do it.
I
thought you were gonna show that. And I was like, okay, so my whole thing was like, I'm watching all of them, and I'm like, man, all these people met in their 20s, all these people met in their 30s, and I'm like, you know what? I'm gonna jump on this trend. So I posted that picture of us, and went back to, I believe, when we were 10.
Yeah.
And that's because we have pictures when we were even younger. Because like in the first podcast that we did, we met when we were 4 or 5.
Yeah, we were little.
Yeah. So I actually tried looking for one of those pictures for doing the post. But then, so in the process, when I posted that, well, then I got that song on my feed, and I clicked it, and then it was just over and over. And so that's why yesterday I was singing that.
That's why you were singing. Okay, that makes sense. It was a funny thing. I'm like, man, but it just made it more funny for me today because as I was going through y'all's TikToks, I was like, that's hilarious. I'm like, that's not coincidence. That's so funny. Cool, man. So I'm gonna go back to your TikTok just so people can see it and follow along as you hope keep tuning up like your content and stuff.
Yeah, I'm actually gonna shoot some stuff hopefully Thursday.
Cool.
Because my cousin's gonna go over. We're gonna try and shoot some. I want to do more like a little bit of hunting within that.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, I'm gonna try and keep up with that a little bit more.
Very cool. No, yeah. So, beloved_adventures is a TikTok, which will be but your Instagram is you just use your personal one, right?
Yeah, so my personal Instagram is DM2107. That's more of just what kind of goes up. So I would say I use the DM2107 account for more the farm stuff, like what's going on around the house.
Yeah.
Or what's going on with like a little bit more personal. I'll also post the TikToks on there just so people can see, but like you can see like the tractor there baling. there's fishing. There's Colorado before, and then as you kind of go down, you'll see more of the house stuff.
Your stupid coffee that you took.
Yeah, I'm a coffee fanatic. People freak out that I drink black coffee. Like,
what else you? I mean, what else?
Well, that's
what else
what
is
I-
there to drink? People?
that's what I say.
I'm like, what else? What else is there to drink?
That one time I remember that one of my coworkers like, "Hey man, be careful with that coffee in the break room." I'm like, "Why?" They're like, "It's strong." I got it. I was like, "Man, this is water."
There's you signing here.
Yeah, that's a Corpus. When we first signed on the house. Let me see. Click that one.
This one?
Yeah. When was it? October 31st, 2020. So that's when we signed on. That was a couple days after we signed on the house. Yep. So that's when we got it. And then also if you read it, so no. Go to the next one.
One over or one before?
The one with the house. The 2 over, that one.
This one?
Okay, yeah. So right there you kind of get the
Okay, so this is the background as far as Beloved.
and you see, My Beloved Ranch. So why do we use Beloved? So it's officially, to some that may not know how much. Oh, sorry, like much, but it's ours, and we've decided to name it My Beloved Ranch in honor of my late uncle. If you knew him, would refer to it as My Beloved, and then also it was always badass. So it was his favorite place in the entire world. I'm quickly seeing why, and that's a real big thing. Like right away, I have seen just making that place our home, and just everything that like you can see. Like man, like that you just said right now, like that's a sunset, right?
Yeah.
And there's times that we're working all day long, and then we go and we see it, and we're at the end of the day, and you're just like, man, that's awesome. Like you're not gonna get that anywhere else. So yeah, that's kind of with it.
Dope. Well, I'm glad we got to do this at least once. So once you go back to school next week, obviously you guys have your schedule and stuff. But
Yeah,
hopefully, maybe we'll get one more session in, and
for whenever.
I don't know. Now I literally don't know what we're gonna talk about, but we'll see. We'll see what we can maybe muster up, or you come up with something.
Well, I mean, so like I told you before, kind of like outside of this, that I kind of wanted to podcast a little bit.
Yeah.
Because I do enjoy this. I enjoy like not necessarily the interview part, but even then, like pulling up videos like that and just kind of analyzing them.
Maybe that's what we can
Yeah,
plan for. Now. We'll see. Again, I hate because the thing is I always fall short, and I feel like I fall short to the people who do watch, and the kind of like the beloved listeners, we'll say.
I call them my beloved adventurers.
So we'll see what we can muster up, and hopefully we can do at least one more session before I have to head out again.
Okay, for sure.
We'll do that. So DM, what's your Instagram?
DM2107. DM2107.
Instagram, and then at beloved
_ adventures.
I enjoy it personally. So the way Tim Ferriss brings it up is actually like if you scratch your own itch, and if all you need is a fan of one to like do something, and that's kind of his thing that he runs with, and so that's why like I am a fan, so that there's at least 2 fans of yourself and myself, and then hopefully building from there. But cool.
I mean for the 92 followers that I have there, and the thing I like about that is that everything is all fishing related. All the people that follow me are all fishermen, with the exception of a couple, but I like that, sometimes they'll comment, sometimes like I've had conversations with a few of them. That one guy that I did mention, Fish Boss, I had a conversation with about some lures one time, just with that. He puts out a bunch of questions and stuff, and it's cool like that. Hopefully I can expand out of just fishing. I want to make it, like it says, adventures, not just that one thing, but
the full scope of what you got going on, which is cool. Super dope. And I know you have some trips coming up too. But besides like this week, you have some trips coming up, and we're gonna leave those to the imagination, because then hopefully when the time comes in the future, we can talk about all that stuff the way we did today. And I'll listen to this episode, and later on
we're gonna recap
we'll
on that.
Tack on and go from there.
Hopefully it's not 4 years from now.
Yeah, you're right. No, dude, I know. It's crazy because as it is, these past 3 years have kind of flown by, and here we are going into the next phase. But thanks for being on. I appreciate it, bro.
For sure.
AndyAcosta.blog is my website that you can go to find everything. I've been posting more frequently than I want to as far as my blogs go, but it just stuff I have to get on paper, and that's just what it is. So endercosta.blog, Matt Morin, DM 2107 on Instagram, and beloved_adventures on TikTok. Y'all have a good night. Take care of yourself mentally and physically. Lead from the front if you have a team, or if you have anybody that, or a team which could be anything, not just at work, but whether it's at home or whatever you got going on. Have situational awareness. Enjoy the rest of your week. I don't think I'll be doing any more podcasts this week because I'm going to Livestock Show tomorrow.
Yep.
And then Thursday,
I want to go.
We'll see. And then Friday, I'm going to Livestock Show again. And then we'll be into the weekend. But I'm also trying to take this in. So I'm trying
Oh, yeah, for sure.
So if I don't see you until next week, y'all enjoy your week. Stay safe. Enjoy your spring break. The biggest thing is just having situation where, I think half our podcast today was just about situational awareness, and just be mindful. It's not about being frightened or to live in fear. It's actually it's the complete opposite.
Yeah, it's being ready.
Of being ready and having, being aware of what's going on, not being so dug into your phone. It's easy. I do it too. We all do it. We all get stuck on our phones, but when you're out and about having fun, well then focus on that. Focus on that. Put your phone away for a little bit. So we're out. We'll see you all next time.